अजून पाहिजे का?
Hello, good morning all. Hi Khushbu. Hello Aditya, good morning.
Hi.
Hope it's clear and audible also.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Hi Abha, good morning. It's not audible. Unmute yourself, Abha, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. So just one question at my end. If I have a document open on my screen, is that visible to everybody or not till I share it?
You have to avail that share screen option.
Okay. Otherwise,
there at the bottom. The icon is there at the bottom next to chat.
Okay.
So do you wish to share any documents during your session?
I'm just inquiring in case if anybody wants to.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's proper, right? The voice.
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. So the link, I think it took a while to connect. Otherwise, I think now we're okay.
Great.
Cool. So should I log off or should I
no, I suggest you just mute and close the video, and your session would begin at 11:15. But in case if you wish to continue also, I suggest for better bandwidth, everyone close their video and mute. Good morning, Supriya. Hi, Chetan.
Hey, good morning, Amrita.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Well,
Better?
fine.
Yeah.
Good morning, Prakash sir. Morning, sir. Good morning.
Murtuza Saab, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, how are you, sir?
Running around और क्या?
Serious. ऐसा लग रहा है ये प्रोग्राम खत्म नहीं हो चलता रहे हर Saturday Sunday. That's a mix of feeling on the last day of the program. I feel the show must be go on.
Yes.
Amrita, to have this program every Saturday Sunday.
We are just moving the program to a different platform.
Okay.
Immediately after this, there are like already 5 branches in plan. So like Ahmedabad, Baroda,
Wow.
and Nasik and Aurangabad is approached already.
Lovely, sir. Lovely. Definitely, the entire program is structured very well. I must compliment, and it is going very, very engaging, insightful, and mix and matches of quite experienced people. So that's lovely. That's what I'm saying. I'm missing actually the mix of feeling today being a last day. अभी every Saturday Sunday 9 साढ़े 9 को आके ऐसा लगता है कि बैठ के प्रोग्राम सुना आपका.
I think hopefully today also should be a good day, and we should all get to know a few new things today.
Okay.
from Dhruvo as well, and then from all the other, because they have implemented it really. So like, yeah, I can see Abha already in. Abha, welcome.
Yeah, Abha has joined. Good morning, Milind sir.
Hi, good morning, Murtaza.
Good morning. Milind sir, good morning.
Milind sir, your image is horizontal. Can you please rotate the? Hello.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes. Perfect, sir. Yes.
So Chetan bhai,
Yes, sir.
the chairman WRC is also raised a request saying that he wants to do one internoid series again at WIRC.
That's really.
So we are
You will do it, sir.
yeah, we are starting to plan that. Okay.
Yes, please do that. My all support.
Good.
100%, sir. Every time.
Yes.
I'm there to always behind you to support for any support required by institute.
Sure. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Milind bhai, good morning and welcome.
Yes, Murtuza bhai, good morning.
Yes.
Good morning.
So Sunday morning appears to be a little lazy in Pune. People are still joining in, but we'll
So
wait.
Pune people have joined. The others are yet to join, sir.
No,
Pune
I'm
people
really
have joined.
wondering
All
why.
40 have joined from Pune.
Basically, today is a yoga day. Na? Today is a yoga day. In fact, I had a session 7 to 9. Now institute has 9 to 10. I have early morning session of Guru Sadguru I have attended. Through webinar, we have a 2 hours webinar in the morning yoga 7 to 9.
So in fact,
Maybe people are tired.
I exited from WRC session on yoga.
Yeah.
We have this actor Karan Mehra. He was speaking now, and then we also have a wrestler there. So I just came out from there, and I think let me join here, get started, and again
Okay.
join there.
So Chitle sir also has a couple of events lined up. So even he said that he will be joining sometime later during maybe at the valedictory session or something. So I had a call with him, and Abhishek is not responding. So it seems he's getting ready from his yoga day.
I think.
So at 10:05 should we start, sir? I mean,
Yeah, makes sense.
But let me see where Dhruvo is. No, we can start.
Hi Sachin, good morning.
Hi, good morning. Sir, I spoke to Dhruvo. He's joining in 2 minutes.
Okay. And
Sachin is from Productivity, your team, sir?
yes.
Sachin is from Productivity, no?
Yes.
Hi, Sachin.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Chalo, I will switch off my video. Let the bandwidth be.
So once the session gets started, Amruta Sachin will call up the other 3 speakers as well, the panelists, ना?
Sure.
Abha has joined. सबसे पहले Abha का ही login हुआ है आज.
Yeah.
So we'll reach out to Navneet and Saurabh also.
So Navneet, you can reach out. I'll call up Saurav.
Yeah.
And Dhruvo is any case joining.
Yes.
And then Deepak also, I can give him a call in case.
Sir, Saurabh will join by 10:30. I spoke to him yesterday.
Okay, no problem. Welcome, Dhruvo. Dhruvo has also joined in. So, Amruta, you want
Yes,
to
sir.
start?
Sure, sir.
Okay.
So just a minute. So, Milind, sir, can we start? Are you ready?
I'm not able to hear your voice.
Is it audible?
Yeah, Amruta, you're audible.
Yeah. Milind, sir?
Milinji, then you may have to just, if you're using a earphone, just remove the pin again and put it inside once. Can you speak a little? Let us see whether we hear you.
No, I think he's trying to speak, but you can't hear him.
In the beginning, we could hear him clearly. Sir, can you please
Amruta, I
rejoin
don't
the
have your
session?
voice.
Yeah, now
Now we
hear.
can hear you. A bit louder, sir.
Milind sir, can you hear us?
Dhruvo, can you hear us?
Yeah, Murtaza, I can.
Very good.
Okay. We'll just wait for 30 seconds. If Milind sir joins in, we will start, else we proceed with the session.
Yeah, sure, no worries.
Morning, Anil sir.
Good morning, Amruta. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, and now Milind sir has rejoined.
Yeah.
So we can see you. Can you hear us? So please unmute.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Yes.
sir, perfect. So, good morning, all of you, and a warm welcome to this last session audit 4.0 of this entire series. It's indeed a pleasure to have you all in big numbers on a Sunday morning. We have with us today CA Murtuza Kazwala, who is a secretary at WIRC and also the chairman at the Internal Audit Standards Board. We have with us the speaker for the day, Dhruva Brata Ghosh, Sachin Shah, Abha, and the guest speaker of the day, Milind Limaye sir. Good morning, Milind sir. Milind sir, we
Good morning,
request you for the opening remarks. I would like to quickly introduce Milind sir to all of you. Milind sir is a chartered accountant with 25 years of experience in assurance and operational audits. He has always been in practice as chartered accountant and has carried various assignments in this field. He also specializes in carrying due diligence reviews required for strategic investments and mergers and acquisitions. He specializes in designing standard operating procedures for various business environments. He handles VAT audit assignments for Kirtana and Pandit clients. He is a partner in Kirtana and Pandit LLP. His service line partner in charge of internal audits in Kirtana and Pandit, where he has executed many assignments successfully in operational and management audits of multinational companies, large business houses in India, and works on various ERP platforms. He has handled internal management audit assignments for companies in business houses, MNCs, software companies, and public sector companies. He has presented many papers on internal and management audit and various seminars and conferences organized by professional bodies. He has contributed for many articles for the magazines and newsletters published by various professional forums. Sir was secretary in the years 2004-5 and vice chairman in the year 5-6 of Pune branch of ICAI. Currently, he has been co-opted as the member of the Internal Audit Standards Board IASB of the ICAI for the year 2021. Warm welcome to Milind sir for the opening remarks. The mic is on and the stage is all yours, sir.
Thank you, Amruta. Thanks for the introduction. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Murtaza, Sachin. First of all, let me appreciate and congratulate Pune branch along with Murtaza and his team for organizing this 4-session series on internal audit. It was very enlightening and it was really required that under these corona or post-COVID situations, how we do deal with these situations, what will be the expectations of the stakeholders, and all the panelists, all the guest speakers, they enlightened us on these issues and it was really helpful. So thank you very much, all of you, for the same. Today we are in the 4th and final session of this series. And we are discussing first, Mr. Dhruvavrata Ghosh would be enlightening us on Audit 4.0. Now, all these years we have been listening various versions in softwares particularly. I have Windows 7, some Windows 13 and so many things. Okay, but never ever had heard about audit undergoing the versions. Just to catch up with this 4.0, it has started way back in 91, I presume, when the economy was opened. Before that, internal audit was absolutely stagnant and having no, you can say, aura behind it. Nobody would like to be internal auditor because it used to be a very routine and monotonous kind of work. So if we treat that as, let's say, IA 1.0, then over a period of time, the risk-based audit or the process-based audit, it has undergone a lot of changes. The expectations of stakeholders have changed. And today, when we are talking about artificial intelligence on one side, and then social distancing and work from home kind of situations on the other side, and then expectations of the stakeholders are growing to a greater extent, it is very much necessary for us to understand what exactly Audit 4.0 is. So Mr. Dhruvavrata Ghosh would be enlightening us on that. At the same time, now the panelists would be discussing in continuation of the same that next generation internal audit, are we ready for that? What are the challenges? What are the requirements? What are the expectations? And what all we need to do? We need to take steps at our end. Some things we need to unlearn, some things we need to relearn, some things we perhaps need to learn right from the beginning also. So let us understand from these panelists and our guest speaker that how this 4.0 is going to work and how to get ourselves prepared for this next generation internal audit. So with these remarks, Amruta, I'm handing over the session to you. You may please introduce Mr. Dhruvavrata and take us through the remaining session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Milind sir.
Thank you.
Dhruvavrata, I hope you've got the connections. I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. And
ready?
I hope
Ready? Can we start?
Yeah, we can start. So I'll share my screen.
Yes, I'll introduce Dhruvavrata quickly. I have got his introduction for all the members. Dhruvavrata Ghosh Dastidar is BE, Masters of Technology, and leads the data and digital practice for Protiviti India. He is a data evangelist with a focus on developing and architecting end-to-end data science solutions. He has worked with large and global telecom, banking, and utility clients with experience in working in business intelligence, revenue management, and master data management domain. He also works as a core member for Productivity to define next generation of internal audit and to see how technology can act as an enabler of audit. So a warm welcome to Dhruva on behalf of the entire organizing team. The session on Audit 4.0 is the much awaited session for this entire series, I would like to say. So the stage is all yours. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in this particular session. And I am hoping that I have 1 hour for this, so I'll kind of distribute my session accordingly. Since I would be presenting, I'll keep my video off for bandwidth issues. Once we are done, I can take up any questions which you will have during this time. So let me first talk about what we are going to cover in this particular session. We are trying to talk about what Audit 4.0 is, right? And before we kind of talk about Audit 4.0, we would also like to touch upon why we call it Audit 4.0, right? It's not a myth that technology is becoming more and more important in our lives, right? And as technology become more and more important, how this data and technology all around us is kind of shaping the way we take up our battle against risk, against anything for that matter. So what is Industry 4.0? I have a few videos which are there, so I like to play those videos. In case you are not able to hear the sound, do let me know. I'll make certain adjustments, but here it goes.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea of human being some sort of natural concept is really going to change. Our bodies will be so high tech, we won't be able to really distinguish between what's natural and what's artificial.
Inside our own heads is the most complex arrangement of matter in the known universe.
You might ask yourself, can we get to be superhumans?
Now, why do we call it a fourth industrial revolution, right? From as long as I know, there has been predominantly 4 revolutions or 4 industrial revolutions which has shaped our future. The first one is definitely steam. Once the steam came in, it is regarded as first industrial revolution, that everything which was mechanical or it helped improve the speed and everything which is we were more accustomed to. The next one which came was electricity. It started allowing mass production, faster delivery. The third was computing, and this is roughly around 1970s. So each of these 3 industrial revolutions took 100 years to come. The last one which we saw, or the third industrial revolution, was computing. It kind of enabled a certain amount of automation, certain amounts of computational flexibility. But what we are seeing as this fourth one is which is also known as the cognitive piece. So it has not waited for another 100 years. So we are seeing it happening in a 50-year time period where advanced analytics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, they are becoming more and more common, more day-to-day for us. And that's what's shaping the way we look at anything which we do around us. And this is also impacting how we look at audit, how we look at risk. Now, why is each industrial revolution so important? the reason we believe each industrial revolution is important because it has a huge impact on the world itself and the GDP of the world. So if you look at how it has changed, we see an exponential curve. And with the cognitive part here, we see that it is growing exponentially. There is an unprecedented velocity, scope, and impact with this particular industrial revolution, or for that matter, any particular revolution which we see. And we will try to see how cognitive and computing is kind of enriching the way we do audit. And that's why we call it the next generation of internal audit. We call it Audit 4.0. Now, before we kind of jump in to Audit 4.0, another thing which is of very important for us to make sure that we can leverage this new technology is data. Now, what is data, right? Data can be broken down into 4 different types. The first is obviously the master data. The master data talks about your customer master, your product master, your transaction, your supplier master. Now, that is very important for any organization. If you have problems in your master information, most of the data that you're looking at may be garbage. So it's very important that you fix your master data if it is not there. The second is reference data. Reference data would be if you're storing a company or you're talking about a company's, an entity within a company, you did not talk about the entire name. You can give a reference number to it. Let's say the company code is 002. It may mean certain aspect. So that's called reference data, referencing your data to something which is much more elaborate. Third comes something which we all deal with on a regular basis. These are transactions, or the transactional data. The transactional data is when you raise a PO, when an invoice comes in, when you're making a payment. These are all transactions which is happening. And this is what we call as transaction data. And finally, and a very important aspect of data is metadata. Metadata actually talks about the data about data. So if you want to talk about customer segmentation, then segmentation is the data about data. So it will form a part of the metadata. Now, along with all these kinds of data which surrounds us, we have seen a huge growth in computing power. We have seen computing becoming more distributed, meaning that it's becoming much cheaper for us to use. There is a lot of places where crowdsourcing, information sharing have started happening. Again, everything is becoming more integrated than ever before. And the final nail is the expansion of NLP, machine learning, artificial intelligence. All these two together, the data which always existed and this concepts which is becoming more common in Industry 4.0, this two together is coming and starting to make everything much more faster, much more scalable, much more applicable for our day-to-day business. Now, not all the data which we see around us is useful. Only 1/3 of the data which we see around us actually is useful, which is 33% of the data is useful, the remaining of it is noise. And of this 33% data, what is very strange is we do not use even 1% of this data. We end up using only 0.5% of the data which surround us. And that's why it becomes important that we start looking into data. We can have technology to do everything for us, but technology cannot do anything without information. Data forms that information aspect of the entire thing. So we did certain, we went and talked with a few of our customers as to understand how they are looking at this technology, how they are looking at the huge volume of data which is surrounding them. Most of them say that either they don't know who their customer masters are or the customers are, which means they have problem with their data itself. They are drowning in a lot of data, which also indicates that they are struggling with the huge volume which is coming in. Their systems are not keeping up. I'm too costly to compete, or I'm too costly to be competitive, right? What it says is, yes, there is technology, there is too much of data, but I don't know how to do that. If I bring it back to an audit situation, whether you do a sampling or you do a population testing, right? It actually depends on how much data you can handle. If you're trying to do something in Excel, you would end up doing on a smaller sample. But if you want to look at the entire population, you need to start thinking about different tools and technologies which are available. And this is not audit. This is everyone surrounding us who feels the pressure of the data and technology which is around them. So we ran another survey. This is a survey which we run globally, which talks about the top risks which are there, which we believe, or the top risk survey which we kind of do every year. This is the one from 2018. There are two risks which has come out on the top. The first is the rapid speed of disruptive innovations and new technologies, the one which we were mentioning, right? And the second one is people's resistance to change operations. Now we are going to talk about next generation internal audit. We are going to talk about digital transformation. Digital transformation is less to do with digital and more to do with this change management. How people tackle change, how they change themselves, is what all this next generation, this digital transformation is about. So I have another short video as to how we assess an organization's digital maturity. Because if you don't know how mature a particular function or a particular organization is, the more difficult it becomes for you to see what should be the next steps in this journey of change. So let me play the next video.
Digital transformation and disruptive innovation are everywhere, impacting every organization. Management needs to ask, are we doing the right things? Are we doing enough? How do we adapt and adjust? According to our recent global survey, innovative disruption and organizational resistance to change are now the top concerns of board members and executives. Most organizations are taking a similar approach to digital transformation. Invest in technology, embrace the cloud, replace legacy applications with next-generation software, build customer-facing websites, emphasize digital channels. Such efforts often result in a digital veneer, creating the illusion of change and transformation. In reality, these changes are superficial. True digitalization happens at the core, transforming the organization from the inside out to maximize efficiency and resiliency. Through our research and experience, we have identified 5 levels of digital maturity, defined through a set of 36 core attributes. You can measure these metrics for your organization with our proprietary digital maturity assessment tool. This is a simple, intuitive application designed to quantify and assess your digital fitness. At the low end of our scale are skeptics. They are perceived as laggards, reacting to innovations happening around them and to them. Beginners embrace the need to change and succeed in implementing new technologies, resulting in a collection of point solutions. Followers have a clear digital strategy. They make quick decisions in response to innovations and focus attention where needed to transform. Advanced companies have progressed their digital transformation efforts further, embracing new technologies to achieve high levels of automation, reduce costs, and enhance scalability. Leaders have reinvented their business at its core. They focus on their culture and people and the way they think and act. Their people know what it takes to innovate and disrupt. Do you know how to quantify whether you're a digital skeptic, a follower, a leader? Click through the Protiviti Digital Maturity Assessment tool, and you'll be able to assess your digital fitness and identify areas in need of attention. And once you know this, you're ready to ask, what's next? Learn more.
Right. So what's next? And if you talk about next generation of internal audit, so what next in internal audit? So this is something which we kind of discuss internally, and Protiviti globally has come up with what is the definition of next generation within internal audit. Now, contrary to the belief that it is all about technology, it has three main aspects when it comes to the next generation. So the first part is governance. So if an internal audit doesn't have that strategic vision, doesn't have the willingness to change, next generation internal audit can be a myth. Nothing will happen for that particular organization. So strategic vision becomes very important. The structure of an organization, wherever we have done next generation of internal audit or continuous monitoring, the organization structure is no longer the same. The reason it's not same is predominantly because it requires the next point, which is the different kinds of resources and talents, right? If you are wanting to use technology within your internal audit, you need to have people in your team who understands internal audit, who understands technology, who understands how to look at data and extract information, extract insights. The fourth part is on the allied assurance. Just not giving a reasonable one, but kind of how you provide the assurance to the organization. That's when it comes to the governance piece of it. When we talk about methodology, right? Again, it needs to have a different approach. You need not do a one-time risk assessment, or you should have a more dynamic risk assessment done or available at your fingertips to ensure that you look at areas and risks which are meaningful to your organization at that point of time, not something which is decided at the beginning of the year. People are also moving out from looking at a traditional audit approach to more like an agile audit approach. And if you talk about continuous monitoring, which is the fourth point in the methodology section, people do a continuous monitoring solution, or they can also look from a very agile audit perspective where they kind of do one KPI a day. So they take one KPI, and the goal of that particular function and that particular day is to use or extract as much information which is required for that particular KPI. This is very, very relevant for our next generation kind of business, where they're undergoing a lot of change. And since they're undergoing a lot of change, a lot of things are continuously moving. So they cannot have a continuous monitoring solution that is applicable today, which will be applicable tomorrow. So they need a much more agile audit approach. And there are certain places where we are working where we follow this approach with them. Reporting also needs to change from its traditional report to create something like an incisive dashboard where you can do a root cause analysis on the go. rather than a fixed or a static report. You need to have something where you can drill down, where you can slice and dice an exception to its core. Now, all the governance and methodology is possible with certain enabling technologies. And we will cover some of these technologies in a bit more details, but the predominant 4 advanced or enabling technologies would be analytics. Analytics would be required for your continuous monitoring, for your dynamic risk assessment, agile audit approach, reporting. Advanced analytics or analytics as such would be required. RPA, right? And it's becoming, our robotic process automation is becoming more common than none for every business, every function. How can audit start using RPA? We will talk about a particular case study on how RPA can be used for ITGC controls testing or SOX testing, right? Process mining. Now, process mining is another aspect which is very important when it comes to audit. What is process mining? Process mining is a tool which kind of helps you understand the process from the digital footprints. Rather than going through lengthy interviews, you can actually take the data from a system and recreate the process maps. And RPA and process mining are 2 particular initiatives which we will try to show you a few videos, try to spend a little bit more time on those. And the final and most important in this cognitive era of industrial revolution is machine learning and artificial intelligence. Machine learning and artificial intelligence is helping to create the next line. It's trying to create an artificial neural network which will be able to make decisions. It is trying to correlate different exceptions which is coming out to see how we can make more sense out of that. So this is how we at Protiviti is defining the next generation of internal audit. But if I have to define or put a definition to Audit 4.0, right? We would say that it's something, Audit 4.0 will be piggybacking on technology, which is promoted by Industry 4.0 itself. The main idea is to make audit more effective, efficient, and real time, so that you can provide the assurance real time as well. If I have to draw a parallel with Industry 4.0, right, I would say Audit 1.0 was manual audits, pencils, and calculators. There was no technology involved in it, except obviously calculators. Audit 2.0 would be people starting to do more on IT audit, using Excel and CAD tools. Audit 3.0, and perhaps the one which we are living in, is where we see a lot of analytics or data analytics applications which is there. And finally, Audit 4.0 would be continuous monitoring, audit automation, CPAs, IIoT, RFID, all of these things coming together. Again, Audit 4.0 in simple words is overlaying yourself on Industry 4.0 for assurance purposes. Now, how as an organization one can take this journey towards an Audit 4.0, right? When we thought of if an organization has to take a journey towards Audit 4.0, it has to look at the different aspects of assurance. Is there a question? I saw the chat window. There are 5 steps in this entire assurance or these audit activities which we would perform. The first is risk assessment. Second one is planning and sample selection. The third one is process walkthrough, controls testing, and finally reporting and follow-up. Now this particular slide focuses on what are the technology interventions which is required, which is important for us to move towards this Audit 4.0. So in risk assessment, what would really help an auditor or an audit function or a risk function is to have something which talks about the risk heat maps, where you can look at the different risks and understand how those risks are, whether they are high, medium, low, something which is available to you all the time at the go. The second piece would be on risk qualification. Now, how do you qualify a risk? There are machine learning algorithms which kind of helps you look at the past data, associate parameters with it to define what is going to happen tomorrow. So these risk qualification algorithms has been written by a lot of people and something which can also be readily used by us. The third piece in risk assessment, which is becoming more important, is on social intelligence. Now, you can do as much with these internal data, but what if you could have taken data from external sources that would help you create or do a better risk assessment? And the social information which is available actually helps you in do that. It can be the chatter about the chatter of about that organization outside. It can be what employees within the organization is talking about the company outside. It can be pulling information from various websites for your AML KYC purposes. It can be n number of things which can help you in this risk assessment journey. But social intelligence is pulling that particular information to ensure that you are not only looking at internal information, but also information external to you, unstructured, and that which has not been used till now. The next piece in this entire journey is planning and sample selection. Now, when we talk about sample selection, we generally do a random sample, a risk-based sample, but there are certain other ways you can also do sampling. One is known as statistical sampling, where you actually start off taking a sample which kind of reflects your population. So you create a sample and there are certain statistical tests you would run to ensure that this particular sample is a true reflection of your population, rather than going for a certain section and omitting the rest. But the next question is, why do sampling at all? We can actually use the entire population, but sampling is important where, let's say, you will have to do a particular physical verification. You have to go certain places to ensure to carry out physical checks. So sampling at times becomes important. How to choose the sample, technology can be of assistance. But there are certain situations where we are still sampling because a lot of these activities are manual hard copies. Now for those, the technology solutions on OCR-based scanning, where you can convert a physical document into a digital one. This is the step towards digitization. An OCR can be put as one of the hands in this robotic process automation journey. So if you can convert certain things which was previously out of scope because they were physical in nature, can now be digitized. And that will help you or ensure that you do 100% population testing. You need not wait, and you need not just only do what is available with you today, but look at what can be digitized and take and make your changes or amendments accordingly. The second or the third piece is on process walkthrough. We talked about process mining, so I'll not spend much time on process mining here. Rather, I'll try to take you through a few videos on process mining, which kinds of covers what process mining is actually or can actually do. The second within the process walkthrough is data discovery, right? Data discovery is again when you have data from multiple different sources. You don't know how these two data are related. Data discovery tool which exists today helps you correlate these two different kinds of data to ensure that you can connect the dots which is there to draw the information which is required. There are also tools which are available which helps you do voice analysis. There are a lot of customer care departments where this is of very, very huge importance. You're trying to understand how individuals are talking to their customers, how you can use natural language processing to kind of understand whether they're saying something which is inappropriate, whether it's something they should or should not have asked the customer. Now, this is a shift from the way particular customer care audit would be done. We would look at how many calls they have made, how many complaints they have handled, whether there has been escalations against them, so on and so forth. Voice analysis goes a step further. It kind of helps understand that what happened within the call. Did they seek personal information from the customer, where they viewed, and that everything is possible again with the help of technology. There are certain other things which we also look at parts of process walkthrough. One of these is virtual inspection. Sometime back we talked about why do you need statistical sample, why do you need sample? You can do, you can go and do 100% population testing, except in cases where you need to do a physical inspection. Now, that physical inspection can also be made virtual, which means you can have drones available which can go and actually do a physical inspection virtually for you. Somebody can control the drone. You can actually go and look at what the drone is captured. There are certain cases where the drone can also do an inventory verification for you. The drones can go in a particular steel plant. It can go and take pictures to understand whether everything is in place, should be in place, so on and so forth. So the way processes or the process walkthrough can be or can be extended or can be made better using technology is enormous. These are just a few examples as to how it can be done. One of these the examples which we also talked about is on contract analysis. Now, there are tools which are available called Kira, Business Forensics and others, which can go through a particular contract, look at the terms within the contract and say if there are things which are not in place, if there are terms which are contradicting each other within a particular contract, or is this particular term which you placed in your contract not matching with the rest that you have created for the organization. So the number of applications of contract analysis using NLP is many. There are tools today, thankfully available, which can help you do this. So these are most to do with process walkthrough. Now, when we have understood the process, comes the next step, which is controls testing. Now, in controls testing, you can do controls testing in different ways and form. Integrated analytics mean any audit that you perform, you keep a scope for analytics. Let's say you do an audit for 400 hours. You ensure that 80 hours or 20% of the hours is for analyzing the data and providing you with information. That is integrated analytics. Analytics integrated within a particular audit. The second is continuous monitoring. In this case, you have created a setup which would allow you to continuously monitor all the control points. Analytical tests are written to ensure that if there is any exceptional scenario which happens, it immediately gets flagged off and comes to the auditor or to the business function to look at it and take corrective actions. How is it different from integrated analytics? You are not doing it one time or every time when you are doing an audit. Continuous monitoring always exists. You are using that to take decisions. The way you look at audit changes a lot once you move from an integrated analytics to a continuous monitoring setup. The way the audit function gets structured also changes because technology and continuous monitoring becomes more important in those situations. And finally, you can also do analytics as a service. What it really means is you don't want to invest in tools. You don't want to invest on people for doing controls testing. Rather, you can look at partners like us who would run analytics as a service. You agree with them that you look at these many control points and give me a report every quarter or every month or every year. But these are the set of rules or these are set of analytical procedures that I would like to run on a monthly or a quarterly basis on these many control points. Now, once you run the analytical tests, whether it's integrated analytics, continuous monitoring, or for that matter, analytics as a service, what you get is a list of exceptions. How do you make this list of exceptions more insightful? Yeah. Sorry, is there a question?
No, Dhruva, go ahead.
Okay. So how do you look at these how do you look at these exception scenarios? You can use dashboard. You can look at them being presented through dynamic dashboards, which can help you in doing the first level of root cause analysis. The second way of doing reporting and follow-up can be through workflow automation. What it means is, how do you create a place where an auditor and an auditee can start interacting? When you raise an observation, how do you make this observation available to your auditor to ensure that whatever comments that the auditor has, he can pass on? And this is a kind of a workflow between two parties which can be created, where the exceptions which comes out, or the control weaknesses, or the places where we are monitoring can actually be passed on to the other party through a workflow automation tool. And there are certain places where we actually have done it for the audit function. And finally, most interesting, who wants to write an audit report, right? So if we have something which can do it for us through an NLP-based report writing, it is also possible. If we know the different section which needs to be written and how it is written, we can train a bot with certain machine learning algorithms to actually come up and write a report. So these are the different places where we can actually use technology as intervention in the risk assurance journey. What we would cover is one particular use case here, which talks about how we have done taking information from multiple sources or using different kinds of technology to actually look at audit transformation. And finally, I would only talk about a few areas or few videos I'll run about process mining and RPA. I'm cognizant about the time, so I'll try to hurry up a little here. So in this particular journey, right, we can start with a GRC software platform, or you might have an Excel which captures all your risks. Now, depending what is high risk for you, you can actually trigger from which areas and what kinds of data that you would need to collect. Based on this particular risk, you can or we can have a bot which will go into your ERP system, which will run your T codes or your reports to pull out the data or extract this information. Now, once you extract this information, the first thing we would need to do is we need to run certain data quality checks and do certain data profiling. Now, this is the decision gate. If the quality of the data is poor, there is no point of doing anything further. You can stop here, and the first thing you need to do is a data governance activity for your organization. Let's assume that the data quality decision gets passed. There is a tick. You move on to the next piece. You go through process mining as well as detailed analytics or analysis. There are things which you would need to do is process mining for the purpose of understanding how the process is. We have done a lot of places where we have done continuous monitoring, and initially we never used to use process mining. What we realized is once we run a set of audit checks or analytical procedures, we would come back to the process owner, and the process owner would say, oh no, you know, this exceptional scenario is also there. So we would fine tune our analytics, we will go back to them, and then again we'll say, I forgot to mention that these are the other 5 things which can also be done. So it became very iterative in nature. When we started using process mining, what we realize is we don't need to go to the process owners anymore. Yes, we need to have the initial level of discussion to understand what different activities they would do as a part of their process, but not how. So for example, if you're talking about a P2P process, I need to understand that the different activities that the team would do is purchase order creation, invoice payments, invoice generation, goods receipt note. I just only need to understand the activities that they would perform, not how, not when. And the process mining tool can actually help me recreate this process. Now, once I understand, I can look at all the variants within the process to kind of create my detailed analysis or the data analytics procedures. Yes, there are certain places and certain steps where which doesn't require a process, which kinds of looks at duplicate payments. There is duplicate payments which is there, which needs to be configured. So there are certain tests which can be configured without even going through this process mining tool. But a lot of these things actually helps if we go through this process mining activity. Now the output in each case is creating dynamic dashboards, dynamic reporting, which will help you draw conclusive evidences or insightful or insights from the exceptions which you have generated. And people can look at these dashboards, play with them to do root cause analysis. Now there is one more step which we have to do on a regular basis is once you generate the exceptions, kind of validate these exceptions with your source systems, with your ERP or any other systems which you have used to generate these exceptions. What we have realized is it can also be done by a bot. A bot can go in your dashboard. It can look at every row, take that number, go back to your ERP system, validate the number which is reported in your ERP system and what has come as an exception. Now, if they find that this is a true exception, then the risk remains high. If they figure out that this is not a true exception, it kinds of goes back and updates the user of what needs to be changed. But in both cases, rather than a human intervention, most of it can be done through an RPA tool. And that can be updated in a GRC software platform. This entire activity which you're seeing here then can be automated. So an RPA tool can go back and update the GRC software platform on the risk, and it can also go and check with your ERP system on what makes and does not make sense. Now, this is predominantly what we would an audit transformation journey that an organization should start taking at one point of time. There are different challenges which we have faced. The couple of things worth mentioning here is, without management buy-in and leadership support, analytics within IA will not kind of be fruitful, right? Quality of data is very important. Without the quality of data, you cannot do anything to do with analytics or automation. And a collaboration across the organization is, if let's say audit wants to go in this automation journey, it needs to collaborate with IT, with operations, and with senior leadership to make it successful. And yes, so we talked about, we will touch very, very briefly on the two enabling technologies which is there, process mining and RPA. So I would just take you through as to what process mining is all about, right? Process mining is kind of looking at a process, and yes, processes are messy. We don't realize it. It looks a happy path, but seldom it is a happy path. We'll talk about one of the tools which is available in the market, which is a leader, which actually helps you look at how process mining can be done. There are a lot of other tools now which are available, which are a little bit more economical than this, but this is one particular tool which has proven to be very efficient. So I'll talk about process mining. I'll let the videos talk about process mining a little.
In every large company, many processes are running at any point in time. Today, they are managed with the help of IT systems, and every process leaves its digital footprints within the system. Vast quantities of data accumulate, big data. Celonis analyzes this data in real time. What can we learn from the data? Corporate processes are complex, and it is very difficult to obtain transparency. Errors are overlooked. This leads to inefficiencies in purchasing, loops in logistics, bottlenecks in production, and financial fraud. Time is wasted. Process costs skyrocket. Quality suffers. And ultimately, your customers will be unhappy. The Celonis process mining technology gathers all process trails together in real time and visualizes them in the blink of an eye. Deviations from the optimal process, bottlenecks, and other process obstacles can be recognized at a glance. Understand the most frequent process flows and learn where your process performance suffers. Get a completely new perspective and stay one step ahead of the competition. With Celonis.
Purchase to pay, often abbreviated P2P, refers to the business processes that cover activities of requesting, purchasing, receiving, paying, and accounting for goods and services. Let's log in and discover how you can use Celonis to improve your purchase-to-pay process. The P2P process shown here belongs to an exemplary large medium-sized company. Let's call them EXP Productive. The volume of sales per year is around $1 billion, and the company has about 2,000 employees. Our smart Celonis algorithms uncover the real process in the raw system data. There is no need for lengthy interviews or reality assessment projects. Just push a button. Now let's move on and see what Celonis really is about. We now see the Process Explorer, one of the core functionalities. The Process Explorer shows different activities which are part of the purchase-to-pay process. Currently, you can see the most common process variant with all its activities. This leads to the total amount of cases shown. While we have 279,020 P2P cases all in all, only 39% are currently shown. We can dynamically change to the next most common variant by clicking here and see how the percentage increases to 52% or 66% in case of the third variant. To keep track of all different paths, Celonis also provides the opportunity to highlight each process flow by clicking the play button. Let's take a look at the graph. We can see 37,000 cases in which the price needed to be corrected after the purchase order has been sent. If we assume that every price change takes about 20 minutes to clarify and execute, we see that nearly 2 years of a single person's work is wasted in a single step. But let's dig deeper into eXp Productive's data. Move on to the fourth variant and visualize its process. In 18,938 cases, an invoice has been scanned even before the purchase order has been created, which is violating corporate compliance policies. This can have many reasons. One could be employees in the production department directly contact a possible vendor and order materials without the involvement of the purchasing department. While it's difficult and time-consuming to detect problems like this in your ERP system, Celonis can show you the affected process and root causes in a matter of seconds. Process weaknesses hide in small details, but with the proper Explorer, you can see all of them at once. Just increase the percentage of the cases to 100%, and you will see how your actual processes look like. The full view reveals all inefficiencies and the complexity in your as-is processes, where you lose time, money, margin, and customer satisfaction. But it's not only the amount of related cases that is important when analyzing processes. Celonis offers a variety of options to identify weaknesses. Let's say eXp Productive would like to know the throughput of all included activities. No problem. If we click on the top left icon to switch to the throughput time, we see how much time each step takes. In the case of the price changes, as mentioned before, it does afford a lot of time to change all those prices in the SAP system. But how much time does it exactly take? As you can see now, this on average adds another 9 days to the process, simply caused by price changes. We just discovered several process inefficiencies and weaknesses. So what's next? Let's move on to a second worksheet. You can click on a specific type of case and, for example, see the different processes of all our exemplary companies' P2P cases in a single month. What's more, you can combine different filters, like a specific company and a specific time period. If we open up the same process from the beginning with the scan of the invoice and order the table on the right by vendors, we can see detailed information about which companies are more or less contacted without communicating with the purchasing department. As you can see, one company, Audit Corporation, is part of this process variant in 9,000 cases, with a value of almost $54 million. By adding the vendor as a filter, we can not only see its Process Explorer, but also its performance during the year. A very noticeable peak is in September and October. The eXp Productive Management could now start from there and check how the problem is caused. If necessary, we could at any time of the analysis change the view to the Cases table and check all information in the source data set. Would you like to dig even deeper into P2P or analyze a whole different process? Celonis.
So what this video actually shows is how you can use a process mining tool. In addition to what it shows, one thing it doesn't show is called a conformance checker. So you also have the flexibility and ability to define what is a process for you. What is an ideal process or a P2P process for you? And what the tool gives you back is what is the percentage match that it has found with your defined process. So let's say you have defined this process and then there is a 70% match, then the 30% mismatches it says is because of what kinds of violations. So you already have certain aspects available with you to dig even deeper. I'll just let this video actually play. this is how you can use RPA for the purpose of IT controls testing. Now, RPA can be used for a lot of different things. It can be used for the purpose of gathering information, getting more and more data from various places, run certain repetitive checks and balances to ensure that a human doesn't need to spend a lot of hours. So in this case, we are talking about assessing the controls, categorizing them, conducting walkthroughs, and finally developing this particular RPA project or developing an RPA process. What it needs, what it's trying to do is for the SAP change management system, it is trying to look at the testings which has been performed for each new release of the software. What are the test plans which we were created, and what kind of sign off or user during the UAT phase which was there. So it kind of identifies the population, it goes, and from the emails it extracts those artifacts and it populates what needs to be populated, and finally gives it to a user to verify the results. So it is going through 365. It is kind of identifying the population which it would need to kind of look at. And for this particular population, it will go and start extracting that information from the SAP Charm site. This is a change management site which we had. So it will go, it will, so this is what all the bot is doing. It is going, it is extracting all the information. And it's keeping all the artifacts in one places so as to ensure that it fills up. Now it's going into the emails and kind of putting those emails in that particular folder as well. And he is now populating what has been checked, what has been corrected in this particular Excel file. Now, instead of an Excel file, you can also have a portal in which you can populate this information to make it available to you. But yes, it kind of goes and says where the sign-off was received, who said the sign-off, what kind of correction was requested, what happened, so on and so forth. And this is the reviewing is then thereafter done by a human. But the first three steps of identifying the population, extracting artifacts, populating the testing attributes, all of them is done by a bot. Initially, we had spent around 16 hours in the manual artifact gathering and around 10 hours for controls testing, which is now reduced to 1 hour. So 1 hour of manual validation of what the bot has done and 4 minutes for everything else. So the value delivered is enormous. The savings which you can generate from RPA is enormous. The reduction in human effort, the quality of deliverables, everything becomes much, much better. Now, this is not just applicable for the one use case which we are showing here, but you can choose your use case where there are certain repetitive or well-defined steps which are there, and the bot needs to execute that. It becomes that much easy, that much more value generating for that bot and easy to implement as well. I know I am on the hour, so I'll just take another minute of talking about what next, right? Let's say in your organization, you have already done an RPA, or you have already looked at, or you have started using AI and machine learning. As auditors, it also becomes our responsibility to kind of audit these emerging technologies. There are a lot of places where we have done an RPA audit, where we have looked at when a bot is implemented, what are the different aspects from a governance point of view, from a security point of view, you need to look at, and whether you have done that or not. We have looked at data governance, or we have looked at and audited the data strategy of organizations, which we call as data governance audit. how good or bad the quality of data is within your organization. We are doing model validation, AI audits for a few banks. We also have done social media audit for an automotive company, where we are trying to look at what kind of information that you are passing on, or the social channels which you have used, whether you are using consistent messaging across. We've also done digital marketing, where we have not only looked at the social channels, but everything else surrounding digital marketing to see what an organization is done. And these are the different or unique kinds of audits which are coming up. Very different from your traditional audits, but very important ones nonetheless. RPA audit is becoming something of a norm, where each organization who has taken this RPA journey now wants to understand whether they have, where that organization is, whether it's the right approach, whether they have been able to achieve that, whether you achieve that through different emerging technologies. I'll not talk about in details about this, and I think I am on the hour, so I'll skip a few nitty-gritties of how to do. These are different tools and technology alliances, different kinds of technologies which are available, right? Which helps you in this entire journey of risk assessment, planning, sample selection, process walkthrough, controls testing, and reporting and follow-up. There are many more, but these are an indicative few which you can use for the purpose of using technology as intervention points within your audit. I know it's late, so I'll not hold back. If there are any questions, I would love to take those questions.
Dhruvo, if you
Yes,
want, you can take couple more minutes if you want to cover something, because I think we have easily 1.5 hours for panel. So in case you want to talk through on one of the slides or something also, you have 5-10 more minutes.
I kind of ended it, so
okay,
it's
no
not
worries.
an issue. I'll rather take this 5-10 minutes to take a few questions.
Sure, yes.
May I ask all the participants to put their questions in the chat box so that we can compile them to Dhruvo sir? And Murtuza sir, so insightful session. What is your take on digital fitness for all of us? We would like to hear from you.
So starting from where Milinji mentioned, I think, see, I still remember 25 or 28 years back when I started my articleship, we used to take a pen and a paper and put those green ticks and red ticks. And I'm sure we still put the green ticks and the red ticks. But then that was Audit 1.0, where we had only a calculator with us. And what we were trained in my first organization in A.F. Ferguson, the vouching, the posting, the totaling and tallying of the trial balance, we used to spend days together to tally the trial balance. And from there we moved to, I think, 2.0, where we had computers and we had Excel. On an Excel, we started then using maybe some database software like and again, like using macros, etc. also. I would even say that was 2.0 maybe. And then as we moved on to 3.0, I think all that we were doing in Excel and macros, we started using tools like SCL and IDEA, where we coded all the queries and once the queries were coded, then like it used to run the queries on its own and give us exception reports. And there were a lot more which was happening. But now this step where we are reaching is like, maybe if the tables are properly defined, data is properly there in the ERP and SAP, etc., then the tool can even do a process mining and tell you like how many purchase orders which were amended, whether the amendment was approved by the same person who approved the original PO. And so like those type of things then can come out in a process mining. Again, like if you go to a data analytics, you could do a rate variation between various vendors. You can do a rate variation 5 years back and today's this thing. And now one more element which has got added is you don't even want to run that query for doing the analytics or XYZ. You can have a RPA bot and the bot can run the query. You just click and it will run the query and it will give you the exception reports. And the bot can also run the process mining tool. And again, with the voice recording for the call center audits, and even the contract management tool like Kira, which will so there is a standard contract for a company, and then whenever they enter into a new contract, the vendor or the customer also makes some variations. So this tool can run and they can tell you where are the variations, whether they're impacting you and whether you should accept or not accept. So I'm saying there is so much more happening, and slowly and steadily, depending on the size of organization, depending on the amount of support that we get and the budgets that we get, and as we get updated technologically, we can adopt one by one. So that is how I'll put the whole journey from 1 to the 4.0.
Thank you, sir. Samir Karyakar has posted a query where he wants to know what would be the hardware requirements on the client side, cloud or CA office for IA 4.0 and how to address this in the long term.
Yeah, so the hardware requirements actually depends on how big, or if you want to do a big bang approach, then you need perhaps a server, but the requirements are not that much to start with, right? A bot can run in your desktop, an ACL client can run in your desktop as well, right? So it's not more to do about the hardware requirements. It actually evolves as you take more and more processes. It depends from organization to organization. Certain organizations will have around, let's say, 3,000, 4,000 POs a month. Some would have 3,000, 4,000 POs a year. So when we look at the volume of data that we are handling, perhaps that's when we can actually talk about what the hardware requirements will be. But it has never been a deterrent for the purpose of using technology. And I can assure that with cloud infrastructure coming up, it is becoming much more economical to go for technology interventions. But if there's specific volume which is there, we can talk about what is the hardware requirements. But it's not much.
Shakil, Shafiji and Ali, your queries would be addressed during the panel discussion. So the next session on the next generation of audit, your queries would be sorted there very soon. May I please request all the participants to mute the mics because we can hear some disturbances.
Amruta, there is one query from Nitin Brahma. I think that
Yes,
will
sir.
also be addressed during the panel.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. So
but
it is
the question is right. So we want it to happen, right? So there was a saying that technology will solve, technology is a solution to the problems. We will always be relevant because we will never run out of problems.
Right. So Dhruvo, don't make a retirement plan for chartered accountants, Baba. We will still have to understand the industry. We'll still have to understand the processes, and we'll have to tell you guys what to query, what to write as a program. Okay. So we will still be relevant. Don't need to worry about that.
No. Without chartered accountants, technology will be of no use. I was saying that for the purpose of what C. Nitin Brahma was talking about.
Yes.
That's the end goal, right? That you come, you just click a button and everything happens. But this will mostly take care of non-value adding work. The final analysis, what needs to be done, still needs to be told by someone to start with.
Yeah, and I'm sure, see, during the panel, Deepak, Navneet or Saurabh or Abha, anyone can take this also, or all of them, and they will tell you exactly what they've done in their organizations and still how relevant people are. So I'm sure we will cover that aspect as well. No worries. Okay.
Yes, Dhruva's session has already set the tone for the panel, and we have him with us throughout the panel. So we are ready to start with the panel. If all the panelists can start their videos and unmute themselves, I would like to introduce everyone in a couple of minutes from now. All the panelists ready? Yeah. So
yeah,
on
sure,
the,
Amrita. Yeah,
on the
I'm
panel,
there.
we have Deepak Vigas sir, who has over 25 years of experience in internal audit, risk management, compliance, and forensic investigations. He is currently the global head of internal audit and risk management at CPLA. At CPLA, he has been instrumental in developing fraud risk mitigation controls, employing predictive data analytics in performing internal audits, partnering with business functions by developing critical information dashboards, performing incisive field and technical investigations, and institutionalizing the risk management function. Prior to CPLA, he has held senior positions in KPMG, EY, Axis Risk Consulting, and RSM Chartered Accountants. During his stint in consulting, Deepak sir has helped clients across the pharmaceuticals, metals, mining, and oil and gas sectors in delivering their risk-based internal audit plans, developing standardized operating procedures, and performing forensic investigations. Deepak sir has also advised clients on their board governance procedures. Welcome, Deepak sir. Then we have Nami Kandahar. He is the CFO of Zensar, directly responsible for enabling and growing business as a business leader. He joined Zensar in 2018, and over the past couple of years, he has led the digital transformation journey at Zensar. In a career spanning over 20 years, he has played roles across various streams in ranging from internal audit, financial planning and analysis, controllership, and finance. Prior to joining Zensar, he was the CFO for Wipro Digital Business, directly responsible for enabling and growing Wipro's digital business as a business leader. In his stint of over 17 years at Wipro, he has led various transformational initiatives, including transforming the finance shared services, leading acquisitions, and their integration and structuring of complex large deals, to name a few. He is a chartered accountant by profession and is actively involved in various CFO forums as a speaker. Welcome, Navneet. Then we also have CS Saurabh Pashine. He is a chartered accountant and associated with Vodafone for more than 12 years. His significant contribution has been recognized in various verticals like SAP, process governance, internal audit. He is currently heading finance control teams for more than 15 countries in Vodafone Group. He has introduced first solution in Vodafone using data analytics for balance sheet reconciliation list tagging. This solution has helped more than 1,000 people across Vodafone finance operations. He is known as automation guru in his domain. His current mission is to end-to-end automate controls across Vodafone to reduce manual efforts to a significant extent possible. He has been actively involved in various ICAI forums and delivered various seminars on topics like control automation and audit management tool. Welcome, Saurabh sir. And we have Abha Sada with us, who is a passionate internal audit by profession and 16 years plus experience spanning across continents. She has been with Tata Capital Group for over a decade and is currently leading the internal audits at Tata Capital Housing Finance Limited. Prior to this, she was working with Bennett Coleman and Deloitte Consulting. She is a CA, CIA, and CISA by qualification and adept at providing variety of solutions addressing risks related to business processes, enterprise applications, and technology infrastructure. Her interest includes traveling and adventure sports, which is unfortunately restricted in this current times. So welcome Abha to this panel. I request Dhruvo to take the session ahead. The tone has already been set. So over to you, Dhruvo.
Thank you, everyone. I can see Navneet and Saurav. I am not sure. I still can't see Deepak and Abha.
So Dhruvo, their
Yeah,
video is also on. I think, yeah.
So thank you, everyone. We talked about in the previous session, we talked about the next generation, right? And the next generation of internal audit, we talked about how technology is kind of enabling things for the internal audit practice as such. But without the buy-in of stakeholders, we don't know how much will internal audit be able to do. So the first question to you, Deepak sir, is if, let's say, we are looking at digital transformation within CIPLA, within your organization, how do you see digital transformation or digital adoption being taken place, and how are stakeholders responding to that? What are the different challenges or acceptances that you would have faced within your organization?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll just put it into a, typically most of the places they say there are challenges towards it, or rather, opposition towards it. I think for us, we were very keen to get into it. I think when I took over the role also, we had to look at the entire transformation for the department. So moving over to, technology enablement for the entire audit process too was one of the, was a vision that we had to take it forward to. Other than that, as a company, as our finance function, we were transforming that too. So that was a very helpful, when the senior leadership was also looking at a transformation of the finance function, and technology played a very key role in that. And I think we were one of the key, one of the largest pharma companies to start looking at transforming the finance function. So I would say from a digital perspective, moving on that, we drew up the whole roadmap. I think that was very helpful as to what all we want to carry out in this entire digitalization process. So if you wanted to say that, it would take about 2 years or so to reach the goal, I think what are the smaller goals that we had to put into place, how many processes we would look at, how we would do it. We were able to look at getting stakeholders within this. I think key stakeholders is not just the process owners or the business guys, but we also needed to get our IT people online with us so that they could understand what we needed to do and how we needed to do it. So we needed to take them on board. When it came to the top management and the board, I think they were very supportive. So we didn't have a challenge anywhere between the top management or the leadership or the board. And they were totally for it. So we had less of hiccups along the way. I think couple of other things which I would think of was very important in this journey is, I think it was very important for internal audit to upskill itself. See, when you're used to doing something in a particular manner, I think we become very used to that. And we resist change. I think for us to upskill ourselves was very important, because in every area you needed a unique skill set to handle technology related interruptions in that. It was not easy. So we needed to get our mindsets changed. We needed to upgrade, upskill ourselves. We needed to learn a lot of things so that we could actually be of value at the end of the day for the company. So just telling people that this will help save time or this will cut across the process was not going to be acceptable as, as an end solution. I think not alone cutting time. I think it has to then lead to a different manner of adding value. What is it that we are able to, what insights we are able to give through this whole transformation process or this whole technology adoption? What insights would the business get? What insights would the company get? How would we benefit? How would we grow? That is something we needed to think on. So it was about more of what value we would create for the business. That's what was coming through. Yeah, the normal pieces of work in terms of controls, how you would test them and all that was anyway going to be added in the entire digitalization process of which we carried out. But I think the most important or the more important one was how could this be insightful for the company, and where could we, help in, whether it be direction or whether we, say something seems to be emerging on the horizon. Why don't you look at that? I think that's where we are focusing on.
Right.
That's the journey that we did. So I think if you just ask me to just summarize it into a few points, I think one, the roadmap, and it'll be good to have smaller milestones within that process of transforming it and digitalizing the whole IA process. Two would be upskilling our resources. Three is having a good communication across the organization of what you're planning to do and what would you deliver at the end of the day. That constant communication and insights will be very helpful for avoiding any pitfalls along the way.
Correct. No, thanks a lot for that. Definitely, it summarizes. I'll take a different view from the other panelists. So, Navneet, from your perspective, what would you say would have been either the challenges, or how do you see digital transformation in your line of business?
So actually, for any task to really scale up, the digital journey is very, very critical from that perspective. So as you grow in size and complexity, it's very important to embrace that. And that also comes with newer set of challenges which people need to be prepared for. So just to give an example, at Zensar, about a year back, we moved on to saying that all employee claim reimbursements or all vendor invoice payments will be through a digital channel, which is entire approval workflow will happen only through scanned receipts. And only for a tax perspective, you will have the original stored somewhere. So what challenge it, I mean, it results in a significant efficiency in processes and a very scalable model for us, so that anybody from remote place, all the claims for US, UK, international claims can be processed over here in India at low cost and with a very fast turnaround time. So we set ourselves a SLA of 3 days, and that is something which could be achieved through all this digital transformation. But the risk it induces is, how do you capture the risk that somebody doesn't claim the same bill twice, or he's not scanned something twice. So that's where you also need to embrace technology related to optical character recognition. In addition to that, you also need to have good amount of analytics, so that you look through the claims pattern or your vendor spend patterns to identify anomalies. And what do we call as we would identify anomalies based on rules and check it whether it is a false positive or it is something which needs further investigation. So what this means is, while you are embracing these technologies, which is more to ensure efficiencies as you move forward, you also need to have robust systems and processes to capture any anomalies. And that's where the architecture of your systems needs to be strengthened, and you need to invest in that. And identify various ways and means how you can pick up what could be potential issues and solve. Like one of the focuses that we have is, before even internal audit gets into, we should be able to identify issues which we see and plug it ourselves, rather than internal audit coming and identifying it, because we believe internal audit should actually add more value to us in reviewing the way our architecture is, and is there any design gap, so that anything which is an operational item gets captured by us, whereas the focus of audit should be more for a design perspective and a system architecture perspective. So that's the way things are moving, is what I would say.
Right. But you wouldn't say that there has been any roadblocks for you in this journey?
We've not had, the only thing is, any technology adoption goes through a change management process. And when we talk of change management, it is all human nature that you have to work with. But from a transformation or a migration to these things, per se, from a technology perspective, we have not faced challenges, but change management is a piece that you have to work through it.
Correct. Thanks a lot for that. Saurav, coming to you with such a large organization as Vodafone, what has been your experience with this entire digital transformation journey, right? Who are, or should you say, the front runners, the mavericks who will actually take up digital transformation, where you have kind of faced these kind of roadblocks, or how do you see digital transformation actually defining your line of business? Saurav, we can't hear you. Can't hear you. No. So, no, Saurav, I can't hear you. I'm not sure about the others.
No, Saurav, we can't hear you. Maybe you can do without the microphone, if you can remove the pin.
No, Saurav, we still can't hear you. No.
Saurabh sir, can we try re-login?
Yeah. So, sorry, Abha, coming to you then. As internal auditor, how has been your experience with digital transformation? And what do you see as your bottlenecks or your proponents for digital transformation within the organization?
Sure. So I believe that change is the only constant. As the old adage goes, I think it's important to know that all key changes begin with a collective mindset. So mindset change is first and foremost the most important thing. It's true that humans are constantly evolving and adapting. I'll begin with a very simple anecdote and then move on to the Tata Capital story. During this lockdown time, we noticed that our 7-year-old son was spending a lot of time on various gadgets, attending online classes, listening to music, getting information from Alexa, learning languages through apps, and even coding and making games using Scratch. Now, as parents of today's age, while we were happy with the advancement, we were also a little sensitive on the amount of screen time that was being spent. And during one such conversations with him, we advised him to kind of reduce the screen time and do other activities like we did in the past when we were kids. To this, his instant reply was that, "Mummy, you didn't have all these gadgets and hence you didn't do this. If you had all this around you, you would surely be using it." I think with this example, what I'm just trying to indicate to the forum here is that humans will constantly adapt to changes, and it's more the ease of technology and the possibility of making our lives easier and better that will prompt this usage. So while some of us adopt technology proactively, there are few of them who are followers, like you showed in your presentation as well. And there are a few who are skeptics and who may enter in right at the end just with the fear of being left out. So while adapting to change, I think another article that I read, which stood by me, was with COVID-19, 2 years of digitization has been made possible in 2 weeks. So it's also the speed of change and disruption that can be very quick. It's something that we need to adapt ourselves quickly to. At Tata Capital, we are part of the financial services sector. This sector has been one of the first to embrace digital transformation, but with it also come risks associated with this transformation. So being a 12-year-old company, we embraced technology in the initial years itself. Over the years, the processes and transformations evolved to such an extent that post-lockdown, we were able to all work remotely from home within a week, including a key of our outsourced resources as well. So this is the kind of digital transformation that was happening in business. It made us realize in parallel that I cannot be left behind. I think we were convinced that digital internal audit is the sure-footed way of future-proofing ourselves. But when we started, we were faced with multiple questions. I think the key being, how do we secure sponsorship and commitment? What should be the operating model? And where do we begin from? Also, there were multiple barriers, such as lack of budget, getting executive buy-in, having the desired skill sets and training, and most importantly, the organization culture. One of the key aspects that we realized was that we should consider the organization as a whole versus a very narrow view that a lot of auditors carry. If we start looking at things purely from an assurance perspective, our successes may be limited. The second most important aspect, which we realized, what we will need to embrace collaboration with key stakeholders to get their buy-in. While getting CEO, CFO, and audit committee buy-in was relatively easier, we drove our initiatives by explaining the importance of enhanced coverage, by showing them return on investment, and delivering insights early in the journey by addressing certain quick wins. I think a little challenging part of it was convincing the process owners of the time that they would need to give in this entire process. They used to think that this is something additional that they need to get involved into. And it was over a course of journey that their participation started coming in. We also leveraged the existing data science team that we have. There was a lot of collaboration with the IT team from an implementation and maintenance aspect. So some of the initiatives were initiated by us. Some of the initiatives we co-worked with the other teams, like the data science team, leveraged on what they had and built on to carve out something specific for internal audit. But over and above all these stakeholders, I think the most challenging aspect was to reskill the internal audit team. We had to teach them how to unlearn. We had to teach them how to newly learn the new way of working and readjust to the new way of working. They were so used to doing a stratified sampling test of control. To get that mindset to move to a more holistic testing, a more real-time testing, to deal with their apprehensions of not being relevant once the digitization happens. Those were certain challenges that we faced. But with the progress that we made, and the aspect that we put was we put teams before individuals. We started valuing collaboration. We created a lot of cross-functional teams for certain projects. And with the output, everybody was convinced in the journey that this is the way the future is. So if you were to ask me, the digitization of internal audit at Tata Capital, it's been an involvement of everybody from the top to the bottom.
Right, a true change, right? Change management, as Navneet also entered in, change management is perhaps more important in this digital transformation journey. Thanks a lot, Abha.
Dhruvo, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh,
yes, we can.
Okay,
cool.
So
would like to take your comments as well as to how you see this digital transformation journey within your organization as well.
Sure, Dhruvo. So happy to share my view, and like Murtaza boss was also talking about previously before we started this panel discussion. It's a combined effort from top management. What is the tone on the top is set, and how people see it as a cohesive working. So before I dwell into the digital transformation journey, let me give you the context. So we're talking about a multinational telco giant, extended arm, which is shared service where I am part of, and 7,000 employees working and 2,500 finance operations. This 7,000 is a Pune strength. And if you see, combining all of them with one vision is actually tough task if anything goes wrong in terms of setting the tone from top, or if we are not able to bring that, either you can call it a cultural shift or a mindset shift. These are the key things even for any transformation plan. Now, if I talk about digitization, I see it that this is imperative and not a good to have kind of thing in today's scenario. If you want to be ahead of your peers, your competitors, or in fact, I would say if you want to be ahead of time, digitization and automation is the key. The fortunate part I would say here is that I come from a company which see as a vision that we do not want to be only a telco, we want to be a technology company going forward. And how we have been working on it is having a single instance of Evo. We have been testing, in fact, the VPN connectivity infrastructure setup as part of our BCP for multiple times to ensure that all of the employees, given a chance, can work from home at the same time. So from the infrastructure point of view, though we had all these infrastructure, it would be incorrect in saying that it had been easy task, even in this C19 situation as well. Yeah. So the C19 situation gave us few more flavor to understand that, okay, what we have been missing so far and what can be added into. So if I talk about the digital journey transformation thing, one big key element I see is making people see or visualize what we can achieve together. I will give you a small example and try to elaborate this. There has been a balance sheet kind of reconciliation which most of the organization perform. Yeah, some of them call it ledger scrutiny, some of them call it balance sheet reconciliation. Basically, substantiation of the closing balance. Internal auditors also see this as one of the main topics whenever they prepare their audit plan. Now, imagine a situation wherein this balance sheet reconciliation can be performed by a robot with a risk triaging, basically saying that, okay, I know where is the majority of the variance, where the unexpected things happening, looking at the closing balance, looking at the transactions, and then picking the right sample and then performing. This end-to-end thing, when we showed to management, they were really happy to take this as one of the proof of concepts and said that, okay, let's talk about what more can be achieved. And this is how probably you all can, in your different organization can replicate by bringing some element of automation, either be it with Alteryx, Python, R tool. There are no enormous technology tools available, which Dhruvo also shared in the previous presentation. Yeah. So I would say, make sure that you help management visualize, and that's the power of united working, I would say. And once that is there, the tone from the top will come, and then people will see that how the digital transformation can bring us a lot of value.
Right. No, thanks, Aurav. So if I heard all of you correctly, it's definitely there has to be a plan. There has to be buy-in from the senior management. There has to be an investment. There has to be collaboration. But most importantly, there has to be a culture shift. That's perfectly, I think, in line with what most of us believe. Coming back to you, Deepak and Abha, you're the third line of defense in managing risk, right? And you talked about how you have taken different steps or different initiatives as part of internal audit to make these changes possible. So if you can give a few examples as to what those changes were, what the benefits you kind of took from those changes which you made, as well as how those kind of impact in these COVID-19 times, right? If those changes were not there, perhaps you would have been at a loss. So if you can also stress a little bit as to how this has turned out to be beneficial in this trying times as well. So I'll take Deepak, I'll take you as the first speaker.
I think since we moved on this, the analytics part a little early on the journey. So what happened was I'll link it all with the COVID situations. And apart from that, a couple of others. Right. So I would say very helpful because we were able to, I'll just move a little before this. I think our IT was very helpful in terms of the entire Microsoft Teams alignment across the organization, whether it be in terms of India, globally, any which way. So that's one thing where we all stayed connected very well. And, it was a very efficient tool that we could use, one. So that helps because daily being in touch with the teams, being in touch with external consultants was very helpful in this whole process. We took this, the step of being on work from home much before that it was declared. We already were, working from home. We quickly took the steps of seeing what the calendar was, what is it that needed to be achieved, and wherever we had already brought everything onto the analytics platform, that was a great support for us to only then look only that extra mile ahead for the closure parts, because everything from analysis to exceptions to root causing, and everything got already covered within those, within the entire analytics, data analytics engine. So most of it being covered there. We had that last leg only to cover with the process owners in terms of discussions and closure. So that was done. When it comes to, is that a continuous monitoring? No, it isn't right now, because we've yet to see everything move on a data lake, and from there have a continuous monitoring happening throughout the process. So that's one piece, I think, which we were able to do. A quick mindset change of people of working from home and being effective on the audit was very helpful. So we had to constantly remind ourselves, this is not going to end quickly. This will be the way of operation going ahead. I think that change in mindset across the organization, whether it be audit team or across, was also very helpful. So that helped us to say that this is the manner in which we will go ahead and close out. Constant interaction with other stakeholders, whether it be finance, business, technology teams across the globe. That's what was continuously, we used to have our sessions of discussion. That was extremely helpful in terms of our closures. In terms of relevance of the issues being built up, I think that is something that was, if you would have already gone on the journey and if you're trying to mature, then you already got the aspects which are more important or more likely to impact business, which is what would get thrown up. So we were able to even ensure that that is what could be done. I think the speed of change is very important to understand. This happened so suddenly, but if as a mindset, which all the other panelists also have shared, that mindset change, if you bring about very quickly in your minds, I think that helps a lot in this journey of working from home or using technology or closing out on uncertain times. I think that's something that we were able to do. Maybe Abha, if you have something, I mean, you may have also, and I'll hand it over to Abha now.
Sure.
Thanks, Deepak. I think you've covered most of the aspects, and we have a lot of commonality in our journey as well. Specifically linking it to the COVID-19 lockdown period, there are a couple of things which pushed us to think differently. As financial services, we had a lot of audits which were location based across about 100 plus locations in India. Our files used to be all physical files which used to be kept at vault, while a lot of documentation with respect to scanning had started a couple of years back. Fortunately, as a cross-functional team between credit, ops, and internal audit, we had got onto a project of ensuring that all critical documents are scanned, and we took in views from various stakeholders to make sure various requirements are met. So to that extent, we were able to continue with some bit of remote auditing with respect to physical review of files, etc., which we were doing with the travel earlier. The other element around branch auditing, what we realized was that we will initiate a concept of remote auditing, where a certain section of the review, we will identify what checks can be done off-site. It got us to a little bit of different thinking. We realized that if we have CCTVs across all branches, why do we really need to go to the branches? We started studying the CCTV footings. The cache verifications can happen with the CCTV reviews as well. Also, the physical statutory compliance displays, etc., are possible in that manner. So, to a lot of extent, we realized that maybe not 100% of our work which was happening at locations, but a significant amount of work could be done remotely. The organization also had embarked on the data lake project. So we have about 100+ systems in the organization, which creates a lot of complexities. And there are constant digitizations that are happening in financial services space. So data lake project was designed with a thought that there will be one source of data, and internal audit also got onto this opportunity. What we did was we studied across our audits what are the typical data requirements that we have, which we need before the audit. There is some bit of it which is still maintained manually and hence needs a manual review. However, whatever was available across these applications in the systems and also in an unstructured data format is now available at one source. So this project is being driven function by function and is not yet complete. But to the extent the information is available in the system right now, a lot of our MISs, a lot of our data can be extracted at one click of a button. This helps us to do away with the initial follow-ups of data, maintaining access repositories, understanding how to extract informations across various systems. All that aspect has gone away. Another key element that has helped us in our journey, though it is in its initial stages, is using integrated and advanced analytics, moving towards continuous monitoring. What we did was we implemented it in a hybrid manner. We created a special unit called as the Audit Intelligence Unit. The role of this unit was to identify and initiate and run scripts for the entire auditor fraternity. They were not digital specialists. They were people like you and I with a little bit of more functional expertise than digital expertise. And we created it like a coveted place where good performers of the team would get a part to be involved in. So it was like a coveted proposition that got created. And through this unit, although the guys had a little bit of functional expertise already, their job was to focus and come up to speed on various digital tools, techniques, and scripting platforms. With that, in a limited span and setting up a boot camp, again, we got the auditors to go through previous audit papers, create an entire repository of what scripts we need periodically. We prioritized on which were the quick wins, which were more important. And in a very short span of 6 months, we were able to make about 500+ scripts, which were available at a click of a button, and with basically graduates driving the place. So for a lot of us who have this apprehension on how do we get started with IDEA, ACL, etc., there are a lot of YouTube videos, there are a lot of courses that happen, and it's more of a self-starter initiative that is required. So the more time you will spend on it and the more research that you will do will give you a higher amount of success in your initiatives. On the RPA front, we're using this technology twofold. One is because we have to audit a lot of processes which are done through RPA. The organization had engaged a consultant to implement RPA across key processes. So we had to do a lot of rethinking in terms of how do we now review these processes. The other element of how we used it for internal audit is whether we can use this technique. So it's still a POC in place, but to review our physical documents and come up with findings. So that's a current POC that we are doing. So the amount of physical involvement in just looking at transactions will get reduced, and human effort will be put in places where really that judgment and that knowledge is required. Another area where we are using predictive analytics is we use a lot of scorecard based decision making for our credit appraisals, where for the lower ticket size cases, there's a lot of go no go decisions that happen basis the scorecard. So as internal audit, one of the areas we identified was to review whether these scorecards are functioning well. We also came up with certain suggestions to management saying that these are the specific deep dive areas where probably the scorecards are not giving the right results, and maybe adding a couple of additional rules may be more helpful. Similarly, we also extended the use of the same technology in moving from a stratified sampling technique to a predictive sampling technique. So using decision tree models and predictive technology, we try to come up with what should be our samples when we are looking at certain cases which we need to examine for a physical basis and cannot be done as a holistic analytics approach. So overall, I think this has been our journey. Happy to answer, Dhruv, if you have anything specific around this.
No, that's great. And Abha, I'm sure that all these investments which you have made have definitely paid off during this COVID-19 times, right?
Totally, we're back to working as if there's been no change whatsoever.
Definitely, it helps a lot when you invest early in technology. It kind of comes back to you and gets back to you many folds, right?
Right.
Navneet, coming to you, you being the first and the second line of defense, right? You have been also, I'm sure, using RPA and analytics to a large extent. How do you see that has kind of changed the way you work? And what are the benefits you also have leveraged during this entire period, whether it's automation, whether it's analytics, or whether it's the adoption of them? Navneet?
So let me talk a little bit on automation first. Actually, the journey for automation which we had taken up, we had certain principles in mind. Number one is we wanted to build processes which are scalable. In the sense, as the organization size and complexity grows, this should stand the test of time. That's number one. Number two is have as much as little number of interfaces or number of interventions required from a human perspective, so that the number of interventions that you need from a human perspective, that actually creates destabilizes the process. Number one, it not only introduces risks in terms of controls. Number two, it also reduces the efficiency of such process. So least human touch or intervention is something was the second parameter. And number three is the end user. Eventually, for any automation or implementation that I do, it should give some value to my end user, and which would be the business users for me. So only if there is some value that we are generating, that is when people will embrace that. Without that, it will never happen. So keeping these three perspectives into mind is how we've gone through our automation journey. And the way we look at it is automation journey has to be mapped completely end to end. So we created a complete blueprint of what are the areas that we are looking at. Like, for example, I set up a target saying in one area saying that opportunity to cash, entire processes need to be interlinked, interconnected, so that you have commonality of data sources and commonality of how the entire flow of information will be. So having a complete blueprint of all the elements was more important. Second thing is to integrate all of this from an opportunity to cash perspective. We identified 10 different projects that we need to be running, and it had to be done in a seamless way where we were running it parallelly. An output of one project will always be an input for others. And since we were doing it parallelly, we could do it in an agile methodology where learnings of the initial implementation at one process, we could take in and put it into the other process. So that's how taking an agile approach and being very, you have to be very adaptive. So if you see that something is not working, you have to keep changing. And look at solutions to address the issue. One particular point I want to mention from a automation journey perspective is, instead of using RPAs, I would rather ensure that the automated workflows work better. RPAs, as a business owner, as a process owner, I believe is a plug fix, because eventually RPA is nothing but it's a much more complex way of recording a macro. So instead of that, what we have tried to do is automate the processes inherently, so that you don't have to have any manual element remaining, which you have to run an RPA for that. So the entire program has been envisaged in such a way that you first have whatever automations and can be done, you do that, and residual thing is what you will run through an RPA perspective. So if you do that, the process, the inherent process itself becomes quite robust, and that helps in all kind of system controls to be implemented. Only residual things is where we would do a RPA. Say for example, very simple thing like bank reconciliation. I mean, one approach is one would take is you just put an RP and bank reconciliation. But the other approach is if you can actually integrate your ERP with the bank's data, you can actually run an automated reconciliation, and then you can use analytics to just pick up whatever is what are the exceptions through it, which becomes a more scalable process than putting an RPA to it, which could still be a plug fix, the way I would say. And in areas like, for example, there are certain postings which have to be done, account JV posting and all those things. Those are the cases where you would rather put RPAs than those things. So the decision of what technology to use where has to be really thought through well, with keeping the control perspective into mind. And once you do that right, that is when you will see a much more robust process which is scalable and can achieve the objectives you are looking for. Once you have your design and all of this thing ready really well, then you have to think through on analytics, where you identify what can go wrong and what are the rules you need to set so that you identify the exceptions. Now, other element is the way we look at it is the rules that you are setting, you need to keep on changing, reviewing that as time passes and as things evolve, because eventually everything is about evolution. And it's not that one rule which I have set up about 2 years back will continue. So you have to continually review that as well. And that is where the real power of analytics is what can be used. So while those tools are there, but you need to use your, you need to really put your brains into it with respect to how do you set the right rules in to get in exceptions and anomalies so that you can keep on strengthening and tightening on these controls. So that's how our journey has been so far, and it's been working pretty well in terms of the kind of thing that we are delivering, right, and how the auditors are looking at it, and how our even audit committee is viewing at it based on the kind of outcome they are seeing over the last couple of years, how things have changed.
And I can't agree more, Navneet, on this piece that the journey needs to be thought through. It cannot be, automation definitely should not and does not mean it is just RPA, right? And I agree with you. Deepak, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, is also very important in this, exactly what Naveen said was, sometimes we like to look ourselves as auditors and want to pick up the issues later on. Okay. I think it'll be very good to see if we can actually ensure that it's prevented in the first place and simplified also. So I think if as auditors or as a technology-based audit, if we would like to look at, I think we should use our knowledge also to ensure that the whole process is simplified and the controls actually work in the first place. So I'll give you an example. We had our US processes related to sales returns. Okay, multiple customers, multiple products, multiple types of transactions. One guy would have taken manually working on it about 12 days or so to close out on the entire piece and then start following up with customers. Now, because as from the audit side that we were able to understand the process very well, we understood the nitty-gritties very well. We were having the base of analytics at, as a strong point with us. We worked with the team and built this whole tool set prior to the whole exercise so that, whatever happened manually got transferred onto this. And now a 12-day thing is working in an hour. So you see, one is you cut through the whole complexity out there. Two is now there is the challenge of having errors coming forth is totally minimized or zero. So then what happens is, I think it becomes very helpful where audit can support or work or collaborate with business and ensure that we don't have issues even coming later on, because even that's a victory for internal audit. I don't think we should only look at it as a post event. Even as advice on a prior event is very valuable, I believe, to the company. So I think
I agree.
Just to collaborate with what Navneet was saying, and I think something which even Abha was mentioning.
Yeah, I also believe that the role of internal audit is changing, right? It's no longer just highlighting, but also becoming a strategic advisor to the business as well. So definitely that's there. Coming to Saurav, you're anyways known as the automation guru, right, within your organization. And it's a huge task collaborating with so many entities which you have. So if you can throw a little light on the automation journey that you took and what are the benefits which you have also realized from this particular automation journey, right? It would really be helpful for the others.
Sure, Dhruvo. And definitely, I would like to probably build on the pieces what Navneet and Deepak also mentioned. So, see, this entire journey has to start from somewhere. Navneet spoke about the principles, Deepak showed about the how it can be applied for one particular case. I would probably give you a different perspective of telling people how important it is to set up a governance structure. Before even you start that journey, it is also important to have a proper Statistical and kind of governance structure in place, so as the roles and responsibilities are very clear. There are people from the controls team, there are people from the internal audit team, and then there are the IT team, which probably talk about the feasibility and assessment of one particular model which you would like to deploy. So all these have to go hand in hand, and that's how the governance structure plays a critical role. And that's what my experience is so far. If I can keep management aware in advance that, okay, I would be looking for these type of, I would say, assessment and approvals, they would be happy, because they do not want that you develop entire thing and then you go to the forum. It could be either, for us, it is Statistical, for someone else, it could be some other forums, wherein then you look for that, okay, this is the solution and we want to deploy. No, you have to start thinking about how does it fit into the overall landscape. When I say overall landscape, it's not only the functional, but it's also the technical landscape. And coming from the organization where we have a lot of legacy, also Deepak, you spoke about a lot of entities, it is must to have and not good to have. And this part has been a very close to my heart, because I see this as a techno-functional role. You have to have that combination of some technical element along with the functional knowledge. And coming from all of us, coming from the CA fraternity, we know we have been talking about this, how critical the information technology is for our kind of role as well. And we cannot work in silos. That's very clear. Yeah. And now giving you some examples, which probably we haven't covered so far, because I am sure with the great experience, Abha spoke about something continuous control monitoring. So we also have it, but I would not probably touch upon that. I would talk about something which is really cutting edge and what we have been working for a year now, and we call it blockchain. Most of you would have heard about blockchain. Yeah. And just to give a quick background, simply, if someone wants to understand what is blockchain, we call it decentralized ledger. Yep. Wherein everyone is having a view of what other people are recording. If I get a view of my vendor's books of account, there's no need to do that reconciliation, something like that, yeah, in a layman's language. And in a telecom operation where we talk about interconnect and roaming, wherein we have to reconcile a lot of records, which we call as call data records, with other operators, because of one telecom consumer is roaming in their network and they are providing services, and vice versa. Even when we make a simple phone call and it ends on others' network, we have to pay them something because they enabled our call to land on their network. Yeah. So that's what is called interconnect and all those things. we have been spending large amount of money as well as efforts on doing this reconciliation, and consider that we have to do it with all the telecom operators what we have worldwide. With this blockchain functionality, we have been able to do it start from scratch. When I say start from scratch, it means when the first time agreement has to be entered with other telecom operator, it's on a single platform. I have a view of other telecom operators' terms and condition, and they are able to have a view at my terms and condition, and we make a common ground that, okay, this would be the terms and condition, this would be the pricing. And since now there is only one set of data records, there is no need to do that reconciliation. It's as simple as that. And this is something what has brought us millions of saving and a lot of efficiency in terms of process. Yeah. So this is one of the examples which I wanted to share. However, you might be thinking that, okay, how can we build in our operation, in our businesses, you know? So I would give you the same example like internal audit team. We all coming from different organization, different size of organization. We can't have a similar scale and shape of the internal audit team, because our basic principle says that the internal audit function or the internal control mechanism has to be commensurate to the size of the operations. Exactly same applies for automation. You don't have to think about the big piece to achieve. You have to see that, okay, in my organization, in my scheme of things, what all automation would make sense. And you have to start from there. Yeah. And probably once you start taking those baby steps, considering the end objective in mind, the journey itself is something which you will enjoy. And I would, if you are, and you have to determine, am I at the initial stage, or have I done all those infrastructure element? Someone was asking like hardware related, question that, okay, what type of hardware we have to have? I would say all these things have to be seen holistically. What is the end game? Once we know that what is the end game, all these things have to fall in place. And that's how the journey will start. And for a time being, you have to have that synchronization with the operations team, with the management, with the support function like internal audit, controls team. And then as a management, you have to take the call for a short term as well as long term. That's the key, I would say, takeaway.
All right. So thanks, Arab. It's quite interesting to see that within a controls function, you guys have started using blockchain. That's I have not heard from any other client, so that's really certain interesting. I'll come back to Abha. Abha, we talked about, and you're from the financial services industry, right? So just want to understand that if people wants to start this digital journey, right, or they're already in this particular digital transformation space within internal audit, let's say, what is it that they should look for? What would be your suggestion to the set of people here who are within internal audit? What they should watch for? Who should they have already spoken to from a stakeholder point of view? What is it that you see or believe should be done?
Sure, Dhubo. So my experience has been that digital technology or transformation, while it strengthens the function, it also brings with it certain set of challenges. Challenges which come with the change that it brings in. So some of the learnings that we picked up with our journey is that drawing inspiration from mythology, like I always do, there are three components, which is mantra, tantra, and yantra. If I was to extend this to the corporate world today, mantra would be the strategy. So it's basically around getting that commitment from the stakeholders, identifying the right operating model for your size of organization and structure. Tantra is the people who are going to drive this change. And yantra is what tools and technologies we are going to be using. So while tools and technology and having that digital acumen and know-how is important, I think the other two pillars of having the right strategy and the people components are equally important. So there is, I think, no single silver bullet saying that, this is what we need to crack the problem. The other aspect is around the transformation journey. While all our stories sound very exciting and interesting and encouraging, what I want the recipients to also take away is that there's a lot of hard work that has gone behind this. Hard work which involves skilling themselves, as well as making that change in the culture of an organization. So for years, we've been seen as a policing or as a post-mortem department that comes in much later, being the third line of defense. To have that cultural shift from various stakeholders and to be seen as a partner in the process does take a lot of time. And maybe small shifts and small initiatives in the journey will play an important role in getting that organizational shift. I had also spoken about a lot of collaboration with the stakeholders in my initial section. But I also want everybody to know that getting a buy-in from all stakeholders on day one is going to be extremely difficult. So Rome wasn't built in a day. It would take time, patience, and money to have this digital transformation program in place. So while it is great to have an early start with a few buy-ins, you can hope to get others onboarded on your journey as you move forward. If you will wait for all stakeholder buy-ins to be with you on day one, it will take a considerable amount of time before you get started. And like Murtaza also said, that it is not either of us that will stay in this journey. So traditional auditors and traditional audit techniques will continue to be as important as the digital transformations as well. So it's basically a partnership that has to coexist. It will never be one over the other. Also from a confidence boosting perspective and from getting the right stakeholder buy-in, what we saw and benefited from was that we went for the quick wins. There were certain areas where we thought are low-hanging fruits, which will have the desired impact, and we started with those. You can't cover all aspects in breadth and depth in the first attempt. So I think prioritization of where you start from is also key. It's where you have the bang for your buck that will determine the success. Obviously, the win-wins where you get maximum return of investment will be the final destination in your journey. Since a lot of us are young and new in this journey, we should also keep in mind that there are no failures. What we take back from every experience is a learning. So it is not that every initiative that you start with will turn out to be a success. However, you should always thank and reward the team to encourage this kind of innovative thinking. And it's always a learning that you will take back, even though you've not got the desired results from your initial initiatives that you've taken. And like Saurabh said, the most important aspect is that there is no cookie cutter approach. There is not, so while all our stories may have something that you guys will take away from, I think the entire journey, what's important is the strategy that you deploy, which is right for the size of your organization, the size of your structure, the budgets that you have. There is a lot of exotic stuff that's available across the industry currently, but we have also deployed something as simple as, putting in very complex formulas in an Excel spreadsheet, so that the entire aspect of computing income eligibility and the entire file reviews, which would really require CAs earlier, has now been de-skilled to a graduate activity, so that the CAs are used for more meaningful stuff. And this is purely using Excel. So while we use other exotic tools and technologies as well, there are other simple options also that are available that can be useful. So I think if technology is simple to use and you see a benefit, that's the one that you need to go in for.
Right. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Navneet, coming to you on if they have to look for these challenges, right? So what would be your guidance to them, saying that what they should and should not do in this journey?
Yeah, very important is what happens is people just come with an objective saying that I want to do automation, and then whatever they hear from here or that they try to implement. It has to be looked as a solution to a problem. First, you need to identify areas where you have problem, and then look for a solution to it. And at times, people I've seen, I've had discussions with multiple CFOs who are talking, I need to implement something in blockchain. I mean, you need to first identify what are the use cases for it, where you can really deploy it in your organization, and accordingly go for it. And or like, so what is important is, it's not that you first decide what is the solution and then try to find a problem for it, which is the approach people take. So it's important to identify the problems and then work for solutions. And one of the approaches, like at least what we have done at Zensar, is you need to actually have talent within your team which is tangential. And like from our perspective, I have set up a function which is digital finance. It comprises of hardcore techies, tech geeks, and premier B school MBAs who are working together with respect to looking at solutions to the problems that we have, where they discuss with each of my process owners as to what are the problems they face and try to see how solutions can be delivered. So that is an approach which is required, rather than trying to find out saying that I just need to automate something or I need to do that. So that's where most important is you have to completely think through all the elements. What happens is you typically look at a low hanging fruit, and probably you might find you can actually train an RPA within a week and you can just go live with that. But while you do that for one process, but what is the interconnecting impact of that has to be also learned. So that maybe if you look at that, you could have actually at a combined view, you had taken something and you could have automated using something else. So first of all, identifying the problem. Number two is identifying what would be the right solution to solve the problem, thinking it end to end, what all the implications it has in other processes, be it upstream or downstream, and how the user experience will also be there. Keeping all of this into perspective, you need to really get a solution. Another point is, the moment you are getting into any solution which is becoming too complex, the test is you are doing something wrong. Most of the solutions that we need we can actually deploy from both an automation perspective or enhancing the controls through systems itself can be done through simpler solutions. And if you are thinking too complex, you're doing it wrong. So these are few thumb rules that one should keep into perspective. And of course, very important is you should have, like I said, you should have somebody of your own who understands this technology. Otherwise, you can go completely wrong into this. And that level of investment is absolute essential, because when you look at technology investments, it can be very significant. And once you have done that investment, you can't undo it. And hence, getting it right or thinking it right at the first time is very important when you look at any of this to be implemented.
No, definitely. Point taken, Navneet. If we do it wrong, automation can make the problem 10 times more. The multiplication factor is much worse, right? So definitely, technology should be applied. It should be thought through. Deepak, if you're there, you have taken this entire journey, right? You have done analytics, you have done automation, you have done predictive modeling. So if people have to start, if people have to take this journey, where should they start? What should they do? What should be your advice to them, that what they should do in this entire journey?
Yeah, so I think Abha and Navneet have mentioned quite a lot of things, and I agree with all of what, their journeys which they went by. So I won't exactly repeat the same things. but might be share a couple of things which were which we failed on. And I think that could also be helpful. See, when we started it, it was like, just jumped into it because it was something new. Let's do it and let's close it out. We're showing like internal audit has gone way ahead. So sometimes the excitement overshadows the reality. And but I must say, exactly as Abha said, lot of pain, lot of heartburn, lot of tears. It's not easy. It's not at all easy. It looks as if we are Superman now, but actually when we went through it, it wasn't so. So I'll give you an example. The back end and the front end, when we did this, we didn't bother to check with IT whether their front end tool would continue on the same. So we actually built it up, and then we realized that their front end tool changed. So we were like, after finishing 2 or 3 processes, we were left high and dry here. We didn't know what to do. So the simple thing of, communication, we think we know everything, but does the other person know that we know everything? That is the point. So I think that communication with the other teams becomes very helpful, I would say. 2 is, I think we should also get the knowledge experts on our side. Otherwise, we will not be able to, the analytics of whatever you do on this journey, if you have to add value or to get assurance, you need to know exactly what is happening within that. And if we don't have the knowledge, subject matter, knowledge matter experts on our side, you will fail. It will not add value. You would be just doing, some bits of work, but it's not going to enhance your role or not going to add any value to the organization. So I think having those sorts of experts on board with you, and your own guys, I would say, you can use consultants to help you, which we do. But unless we know it, I don't think it will work. Another thing which we did very successfully was we were able to get the business guys to work with us. So we talked to them, took their support. There is no harm in going and approaching them because they know the tricks of the trade better than us. So, what we did was we sat together with them and said that it's only going to benefit you in future. So how could we work together with you? We got them on board and built our whole program based on that. I think having said that, it's also important that we should learn to tweak our sets of work now very quickly, because once we have done it in a particular manner, I've seen by the next year, people have learned to maneuver over that. How quickly can we change is another issue that I think we need to address, because we realize that one dashboard we created in that year, next year was not relevant in 75% of the cases within that. So we thought we had success, that everything went down. Little did we realize that people tweaked it for their own benefits. You see, I'm not talking financial benefits, but I'm talking about the manner of operation. So how quickly we can also change now and not be stuck with it that we had done it. We need to go back and to the drawing board, review it again, and get our assurance back again on that front. Having said that, I think regular communication across levels will be very important. And I think one of the things which one of our board members did bring up to me was very important, was when I was presenting and said, we did all this. It was wonderful to have all our finance heads sitting out there too. She was not willing to take what I said, but said, let's hear from what the others have to say of how beneficial it is to them. Sometimes we like to say we did a great job, but it's important to take a survey with the business people to say, do they feel value in it? That's a very important feedback to take from the other side. Otherwise, we could be normally thinking that we did a great job, but they may not feel the same. Yes, so I think that said, it is also very important to realize, I think, in this journey that we will have to keep building on what we have already done. There is no, it's not as if, this is a stationary project and it will remain there. I think we need to realize that it is got to be innovated upon, kept re-looked at, and we need to keep improving on what we have done in the past. So I think if we keep these principles in mind, I think that's something as a journey, or that's something going forward that we could get benefited. That's my 2 bits on that.
I agree, Deepak, that when you're talking about innovation, when you're talking about automation, analytics, technology changes very fast. So you rightly mentioned that if we do not kind of keep at pace with it, we would be losing out. Mr. Farooq, there is a lot of noise from your side. Can you mute your line? Hello? Yeah, thank you. No, thanks, Deepak. Saurav, coming to you, any tips you would have when it comes to dealing with so many entities? How do you make it successful? Because I think both Abha and Deepak hinted that collaboration is key, right? Without collaboration, it's not going to be successful. And with Vodafone, it's just not collaboration internally within departments, but across many entities. So any tips as to how you believe that digital transformation would be successful in any organization?
Definitely, Dhruvo. So I would keep it short and will define it into very simple term, which I usually use to explain it to my peers. It's a deep, where deep, D stands for define. So first you have to be very articulative, very specific about your problem statement. Then E stands for explore, wherein you go to the sketchboard, explore all the feasible options, and then discuss it with your stakeholders, take their buy-in. And then further you go to explore. Explore because you have to see that, okay, this particular way of dealing with the problem will work on a large scale. So there you actually perform that exploration stage, and then you get the proper output. So this is how it's very simple in terms of someone who would like to start with. And in our organization, we multiple times spoke about that we have a large number of entities and large number of legacy system. We are simply sticking to the basics, because that's where the detail lies, and we always believe in taking the data-driven decision. The data-driven decision also helps us to ensure that, okay, it shouldn't be that a small POC, if not able to see the result on the base of previous historical data, then imagine the kind of haywire it can create, So that's why we always believe in data-driven decision. And with this deep working, we actually so far have been successful. I won't say that, okay, every time it makes sense. However, sticking to the basic data-driven decision and deep would give you optimum result maximum number of times.
Thanks, Saurav. And thanks everyone for your time. What I understand from the discussion is that digital transformation is the way to go, whether it's internal or whether it's first line, second line, third line. Automation, analytics should be part of this journey. However, we should not kind of try to make it a little complex. We should try to keep it simple. We should stick to the basics. We should collaborate with different teams. We should learn from what we have done, our mistakes, and kind of go forward to make it successful. And as we started in the beginning, right, it is less to do with anything on technology and more to do with a change in the mindset and the change as to how we look at things, right? Even the definition of digital transformation, I think, done worldwide it is how you can keep up with the pace of change rather than going and opening a website or buying an automation tool. And that's something I believe which is keep on coming in most of the discussion which we had with our esteemed panelists. Before we end, we'll open up it for certain question and answers. Amruta, you wanted to add something?
Majority of the questions in the chat box have been addressed by Murtuza sir. But still, the members are most welcome to put up their questions in the chat box so that we can pass over to the panel. And it was fantastic deliberation with all the panelists. I also welcome CSCV Chitara sir, our Central Council member, who is present with
Amruta,
us today for the valedictory session. Yes, sir.
one question, Dhruvo, which I am seeing in the chat box is, okay, like other than Excel and macro for small organization, what are the tools which we can use and we can start with? If someone can answer that, that will be helpful.
Yeah. Sorry, I had missed that. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. So, Abha, Deepak, Saurav, Navneet, any one of you? Yeah, Abha, you can. Other than Excel and macros, what should people do?
So there are a lot of tools that are available. There are data analytic tools such as IDEA and ACL. There are various visualization tools like Power BI and Tableau, which can help you visualize and put your data better. So there are a plethora of tools, but it's more important to know what is your end objective out of the analytics and what's the benefit you're trying to derive from it. I think there's also a seminar that the Institute is going to do around IDEA. There are a lot of YouTube videos also that people can, pick up initial analytic skills from over and above Excel. Our data science team also uses R, Python, and SAS for scripting and programming, but that would require a little bit of programming knowledge per se before you get on. However, IDEA and ACL are more user-friendly tools.
Right. Thanks, Abha. Ajinkya has a question on how can you differentiate between use of RPA and RDA for internal audit as well as process improvement. So would one of you like to take that? So how do you differentiate the use of robotic process automation and robotic desktop automation? Navneet, Saurav, yeah.
Okay, so if I can take that, so this is probably what Navneet has already covered as part of his one of the section, that RPA is basically the process thing, and people should see how first we can automate the entire process, because the controls and desktop things which we are doing, our activities come as a later stage. First, if you are able to do that process automation end to end, a lot of time you will see that you can avoid the control automation numbers, because ultimately what you are trying to do is, as part of the process automation, you are embedding the element of controls. The other activities which are kind of review activities or approval activities also you can get rid of. So that's how I would probably be more inclined to suggest the RPA. RDA is, like you said, that desktop things are only limited to the small problem. You can see this one is a micro thing and RPA is a macro thing. That's how I would like to reflect on that particular question.
All right. So if I can add, it's kind of attended and unattended, right? So RDAs, I would say, is used mostly if it is a, let's say if you're in a cost center application and there is a certain application which needs to run in everyone's computer, that would classify more as an RDA. And what Saurav mentioned, RPA would be a more wholesome or a more macro thing where you would kind of look at the entire journey. Abdul Qadir has this question: for small firm with software to be used as IDEA is costly matter. Any data analytics software which is not much costly and solve most of the problem, or any open source data analytics platform? So Deepak, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I think that was already answered in a way by Abha. In terms of, I think you have ACL and you have IDEA which you could look at, which is reasonably very, cost effective for a smaller firm from that perspective. I'm not sure whether the person is talking from a firm perspective or from an organization perspective, because if you're talking from a firm perspective to use it, I think that is fine to be used by, and most consultants should possibly use that. But if you're looking from an organization perspective, I would say, then it is better to actually build something for the long run and not depend on possibly some of these tools. It would be good to have, you know, the analytics developed, you know, which would have, you know, you could have the entire SQL scripts being written on that. You have a front end to project it on. I think it would be better to develop something like that, but based on the budgets that you have. But I think if you show the value on the long run, I think organizations will be able to, iron out and give budgets for something like that. But I would also like to state one thing in this is, see, we are more and more talking about tools which should manage, which I fully agree upon, and I don't say that we shouldn't use them. But I'm trying to, one more thing which is very important in this journey now is the knowledge of the process lies with you. Don't ever discount that, because what knowledge resides within us is the one that you will transfer onto technology. So whether you use Excel or you use macros or you use any tool, if you've not understood or you don't have the knowledge on it, I don't think any tool can support you. So please, I again and again, I repeat it, don't think that a tool is going to be your gift for life. The tool will only help you as to what you put into it. So my suggestion is still, please remember that you have the brains. Use that well. It will get converted very well in a tool post that. As an example, I would like to tell you, you know, when we went on the cyber journey to actually deal with the threats, I did not have anybody in my team who knew this. Okay. On the other side, the people who knew it thought they knew it all. But a person from my team actually learned the whole thing, and a chartered accountant. Okay, so sometimes we leave it to saying IT people. See, IT guys will give you all the knowledge which you will not understand. And as Navneet said it earlier, make everything very simple. Nothing can be complicated. I think don't complicate any process. Then we will create Enron situations. It has to be very simple. Everything can be actually looked at very simply. The guy who did the cyber thing is my technical expert, which could challenge any IT guy on the other side. If you start putting it down on, you know, very simple terms, which everybody understands. So my suggestion would be use the tools which Abha did mention, which it will work for any organization, but I would suggest focus mostly and very importantly on your knowledge of the process and the technicalities within that and what could go wrong within that. That's how you will capture the gaps that are there, and that's how you will add value. That's my suggestion.
Dhruvo,
yeah,
Murtuza here. I'll just add for a minute to what Deepak said. And so like, see, I was seeing two queries, one from Abdul, one from Sakil, and they were talking about small size firms. So for benefit of CF firms, see, with IDEA, ICI has entered into an MOU 5-6 years back. And with IDEA, we are currently also talking to their India franchise partner to do a one-day training. It will be a 6 hours training, and they will tell us how to exactly use. And there are some built-in queries. So you need to just plug and play. You can pull your data from Tally, SAP, ERP, you can just plot it, and you can, there are few queries which are plug and play. And of course, like Deepak said, for each client, you will have to apply your mind and write queries, and you can do a lot more. But there is something ready also for someone to be a beginner and start. And now what we are talking to them is for a 1,500 rupees or so, we will also get a 30 days demo for the firm. With a firm registration number, if someone registers, they will get a free demo for 30 days. And they can use it for 5-7 days. Then on a Saturday, we'll do a 6 hours training, and then they can use it for 30 days. And if they like, then like the total cost which ICI is agreed with is 50,000 plus GST for the first year and 10,000 for plus GST for renewal. So in a yearly 10,000 rupees, if you're getting a data analytics software with a lot of queries inbuilt as well, and with an option to plug, play, and do a lot more, then I think it is a nice thing. So that is the only thing which I wanted to add, Dhruvo, and back to you. Sorry.
Right. No, there is one more question, which is, what do you think about developing RPA for audit versus correcting errors in the source system? So if one of you would like to take it.
Okay, I would just, if you're asking my view, I would say that it is best that we correct it in the source system, because then it doesn't come forward only in the next stage. No? I think it is important to have the prevention rather than detection. So I would err on this, or I would prefer, I would say, to go on prevention, rectifying the source system. And then you don't, I mean, you know, you save a whole lot of cost on looking at RPA or going through, it's going to be just a monotonous issue then later on. I don't see a challenge then in the future going ahead. So that's my viewpoint.
Right. The other question is, in a mid-sized organization where the required expertise may not be internally available, can we get consultative support? What automation we require? So I think I'll answer that. What I believe Deepak, Abha, and everybody is pointing to is, ultimately you would need to develop things internally. Yes, to start the journey, perhaps it makes sense to get some consultative support, but at the end of the day, you should have what people call as citizen developers. So people inside your organization who can start doing this work. And a lot of these things are not that hard. So Deepak talked about that cybersecurity example, right? Where people from his team actually learn and challenged people. So yes, developing skills internally is possible. It's more about upskilling rather than hiring or getting another person with that kind of an expertise. And that's what I believe will help to start the journey. You can take some help, but end of the day, it should be internal to an organization. I think, Murtaza, this question is for you. What is the tools our institutes are planning to add for RPA or automation audits, and any tools for data analysis?
See, really, at WIRC, and of course, whatever we do at WIRC rolls into at ICAI, we are trying to do multiple things. And like I said, one was IDEA, which was a data analytics tool. On RPA, in fact, we are taking support of Dhruvo only, and we are talking to Automation Anywhere University for conducting a course for the CA members. But the fees we are trying to negotiate, it has to be something which members can afford and they can undergo that training. And once that is done, then maybe we can encourage our clans, wherever there is an automation happening, the clan can buy the license of the programming bot, runner bot, and we can help in doing the consulting support. So we are working on that. There is one more thing which we are working at, and see, Chitle sir is also here. He is a central council member. He will also add to a lot of stuff, because there is a lot of happening at the central council which I may not know. But at the region, what we were talking about is, see, there is like now everyone knows that on a monthly basis we do concurrent bank audit, and at a yearly basis also we do bank audit. And assuming a Union Bank of India has got 4,000 branches across India and 4,000 auditors, so there are data rooms. And so we were at WRC looking at certain data rooms where, like the Union Bank acquires a space on the cloud with the data room company, and then like they create all these folders, ke Pune West branch or Pune Camp branch or Kalyan West branch or Thana East branch and XYZ. And then on a regular interval, the branch manager or their team can upload the data into this data room, and then the auditors can go there and do their checking of interest calculation, new advances given, the documentation for the new advances, etc. And then like once the documentation is available on cloud, you don't need to visit the branch, and we can sit at home in this current COVID environment and even do the audit. And then we can even do a video calling like this, and we can clarify our doubts, and then we send out another mail of our requirement, which they can again upload in that folder where an auditor has got access, and they can do the audit. So this is also something which we are talking to. See, everything needs time, because we need to look at multiple products, identify, hard negotiate, so that we bargain and agree on a good rate. But definitely we're trying to do few stuffs. But like if I were to talk about the data room to a CA firm, and assuming you have a decent sized client, then you buy a data room, and your clients, you encourage them to put the on their folder their data, so that your team member sitting at home can also access that particular folder, get the data, do the audit, and they can put into the format, etc., and do various stuff. So just an example which I wanted to give. And Dhruvo, so I think that is what I could add at this point in time to Somdev's query. Back to you or back to Amruta.
Thank you,
Dhruvo,
Murtuza sir. Thank you, Dhruvo, and the galaxy of experts, those who have shared their experiences. Now I welcome our Central Council member, C.V. Chitare sir, for the valedictory remarks.
Well, thank you, Amruta. Really, it would have been beneficial had I been here from the beginning, because most of the things discussed with me, I was present in last half an hour, were really interesting and encouraging. Abha, Deepak, yes, Saurabh, Navneet, and ultimately the coordinating anchor duo, they have done a wonderful job, and I'm sure that substantial inputs have been received. And thank you for very well coordinating, Murtuza and you, Amruta. As you know, as this internal audit is driven by technology which the businesses adopt. When we started practice as internal audit, etc., at that time it was like you verify whether all vouchers are available, whether the serial number of the receipts, etc., is intact, etc., etc. So those were mainly the days where the manual accounting and manual work was done. Now those days are no more relevant. Thereafter we were taken over by computers, and then different challenges came up. And today, now we are we have entered the digital era. So new challenges have come. So when the businesses have entered this digital era, definitely as a chartered accountant, we need to address this technology, what we call as ABCD, maybe artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud, data, and everything. And the more and more you go into sophistication, the trail becomes thinner, because now in digital era, the voucher itself may not be available because everything will happen on computers. But then you have more robust third-party evidence available and concepts like blockchain. So as far as we as a chartered accountants are concerned who are going to perform these internal audits, they need to be abreast of the business and the technologies with which the businesses are operating. And if the businesses have embraced ABCD, unless I know ABCD, I just cannot venture to think of internal audit, leave aside doing audit. It will not be possible. And of course, at institute level, to this ABCD, we also add E for ethics. And as you are aware, from 1st of July, these ethics are also going to be changed. And those will be in lines of international ethics, which have been proposed by IESBA. So that is another story. So for a chartered accountant, it is not confined to ABCD. It is ABCD and E. Now, let me tell you that traditionally, number of small and medium firms are embraced or engaged in, say, taxation matters. They are conducting tax audit, maybe GST audit, maybe GST compilation. Now, take example, even in case of this services to be rendered in auditing arena. Now, there may be 10 lakh payment vouchers, 1 lakh payment vouchers, and question comes up like whether the TDS has been appropriately made in all those 1 lakh or 10 lakh payments, whether any payment in a day exceeds 10,000 rupees otherwise than by banking channels. Now, even if you have the most brilliant person from a office or maybe chartered accountant himself doing it, will he be able to do it without help of any tool? And if you employ a tool, then definitely whatever work manually would have done within 2 days, 3 days, 4 days can be accomplished within maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or maximum 1 hour. So this we are experiencing. Number of tools are coming in taxation arena. Even as far as these GST returns are concerned, compiling GST return without mechanical intervention is impossible. No even mid-sized company, small-sized company would be able to match those input-output credits and everything. So, as Deepak rightly pointed out, yes, the core is our knowledge, maybe about company law, maybe about accounting, auditing, taxation. But then this particular knowledge, basic knowledge of law has to be sharpened with the knowledge of technology and the knowledge of the things which are going on with various businesses. So whenever we talk of internal audit, at times it is felt that yes, it is past, doing some post objective going forward. Because as we are witnessing, formerly the object of the organization and definitely followed by the audit objective was whether the owner's interests have been nursed, have been protected. And owner was the focal point. But now going forward, from owners, now everybody has started using the word stakeholders. So it is not only the responsibility of an auditor which rests with owner, maybe the appointing authority, but the auditor, maybe internal, maybe statutory, they also have to take care of all the stakeholders. The stakeholder may be employees, the stakeholder may be government in the form of taxes or in the form of other levies. The stakeholder may be banker, it may be creditor, it may be customer. So whatever is well-being for all the stakeholders, that is required to be addressed by even internal audit. And if there is some missing link, some element is not being addressed, maybe it would be appropriate for an internal auditor to point out that yes, this is the missing link, because there the value add will stand, because unless the organization serves all stakeholders, it will not be able to sustain in a longer run. Now, up till now, we are talking of stakeholders. But you must be aware that United Nations have passed a resolution about sustainability, and they have embraced 17 sustainability initiatives for the entire globe. So those initiatives are like, there should be no poverty, there should be no hunger, there should be quality education, there should be peace, and so on, which are embracing the entire mankind and well-being of the mankind. And those enterprises which will be having their objectives subservient to these sustainability objectives definitely are going to be long-term sustainable. In fact, we had discussion with some of the organizations which have embraced these sustainability initiatives of United Nations, and they are spending in crores for the purpose of these initiatives. Now, if we talk in traditional sales, what is ROI on these sustainability expenses? So initially, maybe they felt that yes, whatever we're doing is for stakeholder satisfaction. Maybe we are happy that we are socially being recognized. But then on a latter part, when they demonstrated their sustainability initiatives to the world at large, through their annual reports, through their other publications, it was found that, say, in case of they are raising finance from international agencies, so those international agencies rated them in a higher league and charged them lower amount of interest. There was lesser rigorous scrutiny. In fact, there was one tender, global tender, and that company was known for various rigorous checking at the end of the person to whom the tender is to be awarded, the entity which the tender is to be awarded. And when they looked at the sustainability initiatives taken up that company, they did not do much of the checking and they awarded the tender. The company was also surprised. They said that, okay, generally we understand that you do much rigorous checking of the person supposed to be getting tender. But in our case, we did not notice that. They said that no, it was done, but it was done via your analysis of sustainability contribution that you are making. So even sustainability is also going to be one of the aspects which internal auditor has to look at. So the focus of internal audit, earlier it may be post-mortem, maybe serving owner's interest. Then it has become now serving stakeholders' interest. Like in India, that CSR also has become mandatory for a number of companies. Maybe it can be extended later on. But in case of sustainability, wherever the industry or the enterprise is harming the interest of the society, maybe that also needs to be pointed out by internal audit function, that is what the people expect. So one has to go beyond accounting, one has to go to actual functioning, actual operations. And when we are talking of actual functioning, actual operations, besides the persons having expertise knowledge of accounting, expertise of knowledge of finance, there may be persons like engineers and others, technicians, who would be able to provide valuable inputs, so that the internal audit does not remain merely the fault finding mechanism or maybe trying to adjust the system. They are also, the function is also able to guide the management that the course of action which they are taking is not appropriate. This is the direction in which the world is moving, and we believe that the company has to match with those world objectives in order to remain sustainable. So the focus of internal audit is changing, the technology is changing, and definitely with the youth which is taking keen interest in this particular internal audit, I am sure that companies will definitely be amply rewarded, because as you are aware, it may not be functioning of the company, but it may be developments in the globe that may impact the organization. And we have several examples like Kodak, like Nokia, like Blockbuster, and other companies which have failed. Not that those products were not robust, not that those companies were not properly managed. Simply some innovation came and they were washed out. Same thing is going to be particularly in case of automobile industry, where we are talking of now electric vehicles. What is going to happen about the vehicles which are driven on petrol, diesel, and oil? So these are the questions which may be guiding the management. So if the internal audit also has some focus on these external developments, comparing them with our internal capabilities as far as that auto industry is concerned, and whether we can embrace that technology, what it costs, whether it has any other implications. So these are the expectations which the stakeholders may have from internal audits. So it is not merely the pointing out of deficiencies, but also to guiding the future course of action the management would expect in the longer run. Coming to ICAI, some of the questions were there. So firstly, about audit tools. So let me inform you that we have committee for members in practice. It has been realized that without audit tools, it is really going to be difficult, and particularly for small and medium practices to graduate into getting assignments of larger enterprises. So the institute has taken a decision to acquire those tools, audit tools, which will help the all the practicing and maybe other members of the institute. And a budget of 30 crore rupees has been allocated for the purpose of acquisition of these tools. Now, there is a trade-off whether these tools should be made available free of cost or whether at a nominal cost. Maybe the issue would be addressed in a due course of time. As far as I am concerned, I am of the personal opinion that nothing should be given free, because whatever given free does not carry any value. If you pay something for it, maybe it will, you will be more careful for the purpose of using those tools, and maybe more serious for the purpose of bidding for those tools. And those tools would be available in short run. We are trying to get most of the tools, say by year end, 31st March 2021. In respect of tools, if from the faculty, from the audience, if you have any specific information that, okay, this enterprise is developing a particular tool, this tool is very useful, which should be very useful for the professionals of an average size, then maybe you also can inform either me or the institute directly, and definitely we will take into account your suggestions. Secondly, and more particularly in the backdrop of COVID, now it has been realized even for a chartered accountancy firm, unless they embrace digital technology, they are not able to survive. So the institute has come out their digital accounting and assurance board. They have come out with digital competency maturity model 2. Now, what is this DCMM2? The DCMM2 tells us that, okay, if you consider yourself as a digitally geared up firm or digitally competent firm, what are attributes should be available with your enterprise? So all those attributes have been given, and then you have to rate yourself by marks. And if you receive a particular marks, then you know that, okay, you are fair, you are better, you are good. The DCMM2 model does not end with that, does not just give you, okay, what is the level of your competency. But if you want to improve your competency level, then also what you should do, wherever you are having deficiencies, what steps should be taken is available in that book of Digital Competency Maturity Model 2. And I recommend all of you to go through that particular book. I am afraid in mentioning that as far as this particular DCMM and DCMM2 are concerned, they have been adopted by other entities, other chartered accountancy firms across the globe, maybe advanced economy, maybe others. But unfortunately, in India, its use is limited. So therefore, I once again make an appeal that please go through this DCMM2 and try to benchmark your enterprise to what level it has come, and what are the steps which are expected of you for improvisation. Thirdly, as far as understanding of this information technology is concerned, as I have stated that it is absolutely necessary. It is not merely technical knowledge about the subject of auditing, accounting, and other taxes, etc., and law will be sufficient. You have to embrace yourself and furnish with the knowledge of technology. So under DAAB, number of courses are being organized to this end, and I'm sure that one will be definitely able to do that. And when we are talking of digitization technology, please await and attend the function on 1st July 2020, and just try to understand what the year is going to be year after the year, the more focused area of the institute is going to be. Since it is privilege of the president, I will not announce at this moment, but I would only appeal that please await and remain present on 1st July 2020. By the way, as far as this internal audit is concerned, up till now, it was not mandatory for corporate sector to have the internal audit. But you are aware that in Companies Act 2030, Section 138 now requires for certain enterprises to undertake internal audit, which is made obligatory for those enterprises. However, the prescription of internal audit is not specified in the law. Now the talk is already going on, since I am heading this company law committee. The talk is already going on in NCA that rather than simply prescribing, like for statutory audit, you have a number of reporting requirements, maybe in the form of main report, maybe for true and fair view, like CARO. So in those lines, there should be some minimum prescription for the purpose of what should be the inclusion in the internal audit report. So the serious thought process is there that at least some minimum menu should be prescribed for the purpose of this internal audit as well. So let us await those developments. But in any case, as far as this internal audit field is concerned, it gives, and it will definitely give satisfaction of value addition rather than fault finding. And I'm sure that it is gaining more and more importance. In fact, under Section 143 now, statutory auditors are not permitted to do number of management functions. So like countries abroad, now it is perceived that maybe there would be some class of firms who are engaged in statutory audits, and because they are not entitled to do any other functions, maybe other class of firms will come up which is specializing into other than statutory audits, maybe rendering consultancy services, maybe rendering internal audit. And of course, those will be the days that we will definitely find much more specialized internal audit firms, specialized consultancy firms. And as you are aware, the more you contribute, the more you add value, the more rewards you receive. So let me hope that with this such type of seminars, let the rewarding career begin for all of you who have attended, and maybe to your friends with whom you will share this knowledge. So I once again thank the panelists and the coordinator Murtuza and Amruta for this valuable initiative. And I'm sure that in days to come, we will have many more initiatives from Pune branch and from both of you. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much, CV sir. It really means a lot. Let's make this an annual ritual. This was our maiden attempt in having IA series, web series for the first time. So looking at the encouraging remarks from everyone, we surely look for the entire support from the institute. Thank you so much. I really would like to appreciate the efforts of Murtuza sir and his team, Sachin, Dhruba, Navneet, Abha, Deepak sir, and also Saurabh. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. I also acknowledge the presence of my colleague in the managing committee at Pune branch, Rajesh Agarwal. We both thank you on behalf of the entire organizing team. Last but not the least, all the participants who included the galaxy of speakers amongst them. It was really nice having you all. The deliberations were very interesting. I wish you all a very happy Sunday. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned for further updates on the WhatsApp group. Thank you so much.
Thanks to all the participants for all the queries, the lovely queries. The chat box is always running full, and I hope we could add value.
Yes, thank you.
Excellent session. Thanks. Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.